Chapter 979. Swoosh! Ding Meng raised his wrist toward the sky, and the one-handed halberd emitted a blinding white light. Suddenly, a cross-shaped star shot out from the tip of the halberd and spun rapidly, and a glowing gear appeared. This was the Divine Light Halberd's sacred star. It was a smelting space with a larger capacity that could withstand any kind of energy attack. Ding Meng was very confident in this. This was Little Spoiled's weapon, and it was far more effective in his hands than in the hands of President Bai Xingfei. As soon as the ray hit the center of the gear began to absorb energy. However, this strange energy could not be absorbed by itself. Ding Meng saw that the gear was constantly absorbing the ray, but the color of the gear was slowly changing, turning pink. Not good. What kind of strange energy was this? It was actually absorbing and assimilating the divine light energy. In the distance, Ling Xingwen sneered, "I don't care about Miao Xing's martial arts. Don't be naive." When she said this, Ding Meng did not know why, but he noticed that Ling Xingwen's voice and appearance had changed. In the dust, Ling Xingwen seemed to be more pleasing to the eye. Ding Meng took a deep breath again and threw away these distracting thoughts. He gripped the one-handed halberd tightly and began to inject energy again. This time, he was using the essence of his smelting space. This was something that could not be helped. His opponent's energy was too strong, to an unimaginable degree. As soon as the smelting essence was activated, the color of the gear slowly returned to white. However, this could only block the attack, and it could not counterattack. You can't understand the supreme essence of power. Even if you learned AIG's martial arts, it's just a superficial knowledge. What's the use? Ling Xingwen said calmly, "Pledge allegiance to me, become the strongest king in the universe, and achieve great things." While she was talking, Ding Meng finally understood the true power of the pink energy. It seemed to be able to change one's vision, hearing, smell, and touch, causing one to be in a trance. One would no longer be able to see their surroundings, and all that was left was a sea of pink. The pink Ling Xingwen had become a completely different person. Her clothes were fluttering, her face was pure, and her eyes were like pure gems. Her gaze was so clear that it made one's soul throb. Why did you learn AIG's cultivation method? Wasn't it just becoming an interstellar martial artist? You are now an interstellar martial artist. What if I told you that in this vast universe, there's an existence more profound than AIG's cultivation method? Do you want to learn? Ding Meng was surprised. Is there anything more powerful than AIG's method? With a thought, the figure of the transit string immediately turned into a planet from AIG, and even its voice changed. Yes, I'm responsible to tell you that it exists. Swish! A green light flashed in front of Ding Meng's eyes, and he suddenly became much more clear-headed. In the distance, a voice shouted anxiously, "This is the art of enchantment, a cultivation method from a higher civilization in the universe. As long as it is a conscious creature, they can use it. This is a more advanced mind manipulation spell. She wants to steal your memory and enslave you." This was Ji Qinshue's voice, but his tone was very weak. Obviously, he had also realized that something was wrong and was desperately shouting despite his serious injuries. The green light was emitted by the necklace on Ji Qinshue's neck. It hit Ding Meng's temple. The divine light necklace had a purifying effect and dispelled all negative effects. Ding Meng's vision suddenly became clear. He saw Ling Xingwen standing in the distance with a sneer on her face. When he looked back, he saw Ji Qinshu crawling toward him on the ground. He raised his hand with difficulty and threw the necklace to him. When the necklace was put on Ding Meng's neck, Ding Meng suddenly felt refreshed, and his mind and consciousness were obviously much more normal. "Little worm, you're really courting death." Ling Xingwen stretched out her left hand and flicked out another light spot. This deadly energy was aimed at Ji Qinshu. Ji Qinshu was already seriously injured. He did not even have the strength to dodge, let alone block it. Ding Meng did not care about the energy beam in front of him. He slid diagonally and slid in front of Ji Qinshu. Gear blocked the light spot with a thud. Ding Ming felt a sharp pain in his head when he blocked the light spot. He felt like his soul was about to leave his body because the color of gear was turning pink again. Ling Xingwen laughed again. "You can't stop me." After saying that, she flicked the middle finger of her right hand lightly, and a second energy beam shot towards him. Ah! Ding Ming could not help but cry out in fear. He used the secret technique of the Ardent Sun Divine Technique, Bright Spirit. The vortex in his body spun crazily and showed signs of materializing. The energy in his body instantly multiplied. Gear finally succeeded in blocking the attack of the two energy beams. At the same time, a mini one-handed halberd light shadow appeared. These mirror images covered the sky and covered Ling Xingwen. They surrounded her from all directions and formed a materialized force field in the Divine Palace. It was an exquisite diamond. At this moment, a sudden change occurred. Previously, the battle had been earth-shattering, and the three-pronged star array was not affected in the slightest. At this moment, the array actually reacted. One could see that the array seemed to be enveloped by a diamond-shaped, translucent force field. The two force fields were somewhat mist-like, bursting forth with halos. The frequency and rhythm of the halos were exactly the same. Could it be that the Divine Light Array had sensed the danger of the Divine Light martial artists? Disappear! Ding Ming roared angrily and clasped his palms in the air. He had to crush this monster to death. Boom! Another earth-shattering explosion occurred. This time, the explosion was no longer pure energy. It was completely the splitting of light rays. The diamond force field instantly turned into specks of light. The countless divine light energies within it shattered. The light rays cut through space and seemed to freeze time. Ding Ming's vision turned black. He quickly activated his shield and crossed his arms in front of him. However, the turbulent fluctuations arrived in an instant and engulfed him like a gust of wind. The crown shield was instantly broken. The divine light halberd was directly beaten back to its original form. Ding Ming felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He immediately flew up and crashed into the ground behind him. With a bang, Ding Ming's back crashed into the array's force field. He then fell down powerlessly. He struggled to open his eyes and found that Ling Xingwen was surrounded by 4 giant petals. They were like 4 rotating shields that protected her. Not only was she unharmed, but her aura was even stronger. If it could be converted into an energy index, then her energy index had already exceeded 5 trillion points. It might even be far from stopping because Ding Ming had never experienced such a level of power before. This time, Ding Ming's entire body went limp. The vortex within his body faded back to its diamond form. The diamond origin quickly faded back to its normal origin. The origins slowly stopped spinning and finally extinguished one by one. This time, perhaps it was no longer a matter of life and death. This was because his life was about to come to an end. His journey was about to come to an end. His mission had finally come to an end. However, at this moment, he was no longer afraid. Instead, he calmed down. He was ready to die. "You win." Ding Ming spat out these 3 words with difficulty. Ling Xingwen laughed. "Let alone you. Even if all of you worked together, none of you would be a match for me." Half an hour ago, Ding Ming would never have believed these words. However, he believed them now. He didn't know why, but at this moment, an image from many years ago appeared in his mind. It was still in the depths of the mountains, listening to Uncle Neo play music every evening. It's actually quite good to be an ordinary person. If you really become an origin ability user, it might not necessarily be a good thing. Why? If you really become an origin ability user in the future, you will realize that no matter how strong you are, there will always be someone stronger than you. If you climb higher, you will fall harder in the future. Uncle Neo's seemingly pessimistic words back then were actually insightful. Just as Ding Ming thought this, the pink vision appeared again. Ling Xingwen disappeared again. The person standing in the distance was actually Uncle Neo. This! Ding Ming was shocked. He realized that this was not an illusion. This was because Uncle Neo even took out a green bone leaf and played a familiar song. Drunk and wild song. The sword's light is cold, The cold moon and lonely shadow cover the snowy mountains. When awake, gratitude and hatred are hard to resolve, but when drunk, we forget each other. This song was definitely not fake because only Uncle Neo knew how to play it, and only Ding Ming had heard it before. For a moment, Ding Ming suddenly understood. Just now, Ji Qinxue had said that Ling Xingwen used the art of charm to steal memories. Did that mean that Ling Xingwen could read everything he thought of with just a thought? Sure enough, just as this thought crossed his mind, Uncle Neo transformed into Ling Xingwen's image. You are very smart, but this is useless. Even if I don't ask you, you will sooner or later reveal the secret of entropy unless you never think about it. Ding Ming slowly raised his hand blade. Ling Xingwen smiled disdainfully. Do you still have the strength to fight? Ding Ming did not answer her. Instead, he turned his hand and slashed his own forehead. There's only one kind of person in the world who will never think, and that is the dead. Once I die, all my secrets will be buried. Don't even think about it. Ling Xingwen waved her hand fiercely. An invisible wave of energy slammed into Ding Ming's face. His whole face was distorted, and his whole body was knocked into the divine light array. To be honest, he had never seen an enemy as terrifying as Ling Xingwen. In fact, he also understood that he was not on the same level as Ling Xingwen. Ling Xingwen was simply using her strength that was several times stronger than everyone else's to crush them. It's okay. Ding Ming closed her eyes and said in her heart, Big brother Zhengming, Mr. Yu, I'm coming to accompany you now. These are his biggest fetters. He decided that until his death, he would only focus on these unforgettable people in his life. At this time, the temple had already experienced 2 big explosions. There are not many people who survived. Only Ling Xingqi, Transit String, Ji Qinxue, Junling, Nanxuan, and Wenyang were left. Ling Tian and Ling Long were all turned into ashes in the second big explosion. Seeing Ding Ming in the array closing his eyes and waiting for death, Wenyang sighed, secretly. In the end, all his schemes were for the benefit of others. However, at this time, the person closest to the edge of the array was ignored by everyone. Ling Xingqi, who had just woken up, quietly broke the bracelet on her left wrist. A subtle wave of energy spread out. This move could not be hidden from Ling Xingwen. She could not help but laugh. Big sister, this inverse source crystal was a birthday gift from Mother. She told you to use it to protect yourself at the most critical time. After the inverse source crystal was injected in her body, Ling Xingqi's complexion immediately improved. Yes, Ling Xingwen laughed. You can't be so naive as to think that you can fight against me with just this little bit of energy, right? An inverse source crystal was a treasure to origin ability users, but to interstellar martial artists, it was like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. It had no recovery effect at all. Ling Xingwen laughed even more happily. Don't worry. Seeing how tenacious you are, I won't kill you and third sister. Hee, I still have use for you. Chapter 980. In reality, Ling Xingqi did not have much strength left. She stretched out her right leg and lightly kicked the tip of the sword with her combat boots. The huge sword immediately flew towards the divine light array. At this moment, a shocking change occurred again. Ding Ming's halberd, necklace, and the flying sword instantly emitted a strong light. They all left Ding Ming's body and floated in the air, forming a circle and spinning rapidly. Everyone's eyes widened in curiosity. This was something they had never seen before. It seemed like Ling Xingqi really did know how to break the array. The 3 pieces of equipment rotated at an incredible speed, and it didn't take long for them to form a 3-pointed star mark. With a whoosh, the mark of a butterfly appeared on Ding Ming's forehead. It was as if the center of the 3-pointed star was occupied by a butterfly. Ling Xingwen was shocked. The sovereign's mark. Although no one knew what the sovereign's mark was, from her tone, they knew that this mark was no small matter. Ding Ming, who was closing his eyes and waiting for death, suddenly became alert. He felt a pure essence gathering in his forehead. 1 second. It really only took 1 second. All the origin points were reactivated. He looked back and found that the mirror images of the trident stars in the formation, except for the largest one in the center, all the other trident stars began to fly around him in a disorderly manner. The essence source was provided by these trident stars. Ding Ming seemed to have understood something. The divine light array could only be activated when 3 or more pieces of equipment were used. Why did Sheng Hao's old man get sent flying when he came in? It was not because he did not have a weapon, but because the energy inside was too strong. If it was not for the fact that a normal star-level martial artist could not withstand it. After figuring this out, Ding Ming stood up again and operated the origin points to their limits. The origin points quickly evolved into a diamond form, and then into a whirlpool form. However, at this time, the energy from the outside world was endless. Ding Ming had no choice but to open up the smelting space to convert it. However, the smelting space was instantly filled. Ding Ming was a little panicked. Wasn't the energy in this array too much? It was like a man who was about to die of poverty entering a treasure mountain. Before he could even pick up the money falling from the sky could directly smash him to death. From the outside world's perspective, Ding Ming's entire being had turned into light. Ling Xingwen's expression finally changed. She could see that Ding Ming had obtained the support of the forbidden energy. If she allowed Ding Ming to continue developing like this, she was afraid that even she would not be able to suppress him. Ling Xingwen's beautiful eyes suddenly began to glow, turning into a pair of pink pupils. 2 twisted rays of light shot towards the divine light array formation. She was trying to destroy this place. Ding Ming did not have time to use his ardent sun divine technique. His opponent's aura was breaking through again and again. However, Ding Ming mustered up all his strength and pushed his palms forward, directly shooting out a straight beam of light. This was not a cultivation technique or martial technique. It was purely the release of source energy. There was a reason for him to act so rashly. His body could not withstand the influx of energy from the array formation for a long time. Sooner or later, his body would explode. He might as well release his source energy to block Ling Xingwen's attack and reduce the pressure on his body. Hiss! Whoosh! When the beam of light collided with the rays of light exploded like twisted electric currents. However, the beam of light scattered in all directions like water hitting a reef. The rays of light continued to advance towards the array formation. Ding Ming was a little dumbfounded. Even such a powerful energy could not do anything to Ling Xingwen. Seeing that the rays of light were about to reach the edge of the array formation, Ding Ming decided to push the energy of the 10 vortexes and the smelting space to their limits. Then he focused all of them on his palms. Boom! The white beam of light turned into a transparent air current. The 2 rays of light twisted like poisonous snakes. They retreated in fear as if they had encountered an even more ferocious beast. At this moment, the others could not even open their eyes. They could only rely on their senses to identify the situation. They did not even have the right to interfere in such a great battle. Everyone here was an all-powerful expert in the Federal Empire. Who would have thought that they could only be spectators here? As Ding Ming gained the upper hand in his attack, Ling Xingwen's expression changed again. Her body emitted a dull bang, and the center of the divine temple was filled with a pink mist. Ling Xingwen had disappeared from the smoke and dust, and she had turned into another person. This time, it was not a spell of enchantment, but a real person's mirror image. However, the mirror image was illusory and indistinct. They could only vaguely see that she was wearing a red robe and had turned into a graceful and peerless beauty. Ling Xingwen stretched his limbs and twisted his body, as if he was dancing in the dust. Similarly, a shining torrent surged out from the beauty's body. Upon closer inspection, everyone was shocked. This was clearly a combination of light spots in the shape of peach blossom petals. She could easily defeat an expert like Nanshuan with a flick of her finger. Now, the peach blossom torrent was formed by countless light spots. This could no longer be described as destructive. It was simply invincible. Sure enough, When the transparent airflow met the peach blossom torrent, it was like a breeze meeting a flood. It was instantly washed away. The torrent arrived in the blink of an eye, and the force field of the formation was shattered. The surging energy directly stunned everyone in the surroundings. When the torrent hit Ding Meng's palms, Ding Meng felt as if his vision had exploded. He felt as if he was in the middle of a cosmic storm in a space-time tunnel. His body was falling apart and was being torn apart. In this magnificent tunnel, there was a beautiful woman standing high in the sky. She had a myriad of manners, but it was difficult to see her true appearance. She was beautiful, but also murderous. She was like a peerless beauty who could topple all living things, but also like a monarch who ruled the world. As long as you saw her, you would have an uncontrollable emotional fluctuation. It was a mixture of admiration, reverence, and fear, making people involuntarily submit to her. Ding Meng had already closed his eyes. He was using all his strength to forcefully guide the essence into his palms. If he opened his eyes now, he would undoubtedly be charmed by the other party. If he let go of his hands, his soul would be destroyed. Even so, his palms were getting hotter and hotter, and he felt more and more pain. He felt that his hands were no longer his own. They had completely merged with the energy. Was he going to be defeated here? Ding Meng was a little unwilling, but this was already his limit, the limit of his limit. He had used all his strength and techniques, but he still could not stop the other party's invasion. Now it was no longer a matter of energy. It was a matter of martial arts. He did not have a better martial arts to guide the divine light essence out, and he could not stop the other party's invasion. He looked down and saw that the 10 vortex origins in his body were spinning almost like tornadoes. This was also the limit of their operation. No. Ding Meng realized that the first origin was faintly glowing. He suddenly remembered that Sakas had said that the vortex origins had not yet taken shape. They were not the true monarch origins, but because there was not enough energy. Ding Meng endured the pain and focused on guiding all the essence into the first origin, instantly reshaping it. With a whoosh, the origin miraculously changed. It turned into a dazzling spiral of stars. The pressure on his body and palm was reduced by more than half, and the illusion in front of him dissipated by quite a bit. Ding Meng finally understood the strongest Esper's technique. The awakening of an origin ability user was that trace of energy. The energy turned into an origin, the origin turned into a diamond, the diamond turned into a vortex, and the vortex finally merged into a star spiral. A star spiral was the most beautiful wonder in the universe. It was the ultimate existence of a universe, the realm of endless growth. At this moment of desperation, no one would have thought that Ding Meng would break through again. Ling Xingwen, you will suffer this time. Ding Meng instantly regained his confidence. His palms pushed forward again, and he also released a stream of energy. Different from Ling Xingwen's peach blossom torrent, Ding Meng's torrent was formed by countless golden butterflies. This was the manifestation of the monarch's imprint. Although the peach blossom was beautiful, it was dead. Although the life of a butterfly was short, it was agile. The moment it flew, it had a kind of brilliant beauty. The butterfly torrent was suddenly pushed back. The speed of its advance was not fast, but it was slowly being pushed back. Ling Xingwen obviously also felt the change in Ding Meng. That beautiful woman danced again, and the beautiful dance released another terrifying stream of energy. The two streams of energy merged into one, and the butterfly torrent was pushed back again. The beautiful woman let out a sinister laugh. You think this is the end? It's useless. In the face of absolute power, you're just wasting your efforts. Unexpectedly, Ding Meng also laughed. You're a monster who even killed your own parents. What right does a beast like you have to talk about the strong? Justice will prevail. With his roar, the butterfly torrent instantly expanded several times. It was no longer a torrent, but a rain of flowers that filled the sky. A river of stars in the universe. It lit up the temple and shone on the world. In this huge subspace, one could see that everything in Mao Xing was being restored. The night was being dispelled, the sky was blue again, the sea was full of life again. The vegetation broke through the ground again. The heavens road was restored to white clouds, and the brilliance of the temple reappeared in the world. On the beach below, the light and shadows of the Pearl people appeared again. They were in groups of 3 to 5, talking and laughing, happily fishing in the shallows, happily packing crystals in baskets, and living a carefree life. This was the real fairy tale world. This was the real way to open the Forbidden Land. All the holy and beautiful things had returned. In this short process, Ding Ming had completed the first 3 points of evolution. The 3 spirals complemented each other, and it was a spectacular sight. As for Ling Xingwen, even Ding Ming himself did not see how she was destroyed because she had disappeared. Disappeared meant that she was no longer there. Her breath was gone, and not even a trace of her was left. It was like there was no rain under the clear sky. How could this holy world tolerate any dirt? In front of him, the sky was blue, and the sun was shining. The brilliance of the Protoss was always shining. Of course, at this time, Ding Ming couldn't hold on any longer. He was like a hollowed-out gunny sack, softly falling down. Chapter 981. It was pitch black. There seemed to be a sliver of light in the darkness. When this sliver of light gradually expanded, his vision became clear again. Ding Ming opened his eyes and found that he was still in the shrine. However, his body was so weak that he couldn't muster up any strength. The origin in his body was still in an extinguished state. This fierce battle had exhausted all of his energy. The trident in the formation was still floating disorderly. Everyone around him was still unconscious. The 3 divine light equipment were placed on the ground. When he saw the straight and sharp blade and the exquisite necklace, Ding Ming sighed inwardly. If it weren't for Ling Xingqi and Ji Qinxue, it would still be night here. Ling Xingwen would have killed everyone. When he looked at the beautiful world outside the shrine, he really felt like this was all a dream. Ding Ming struggled to get up. He dragged Ji Qinxue, Ling Xingqi, and Junling over. Then he gathered them together and used the last of his energy to wake them up. The 3 women were clearly stunned by the bright white scene in front of them. Junling couldn't help but ask, "Where's Ling Xingwen?" Ding Ming said, "She's gone." "Gone?" Junling's eyes widened. "You killed her?" Ding Ming nodded weakly. "Maybe." Ji Qinxue and Ling Xingqi also widened their eyes. A powerhouse like Ling Xingwen was actually killed. This was an unbelievable miracle. However, when they looked at the holy and beautiful scene in this subspace, they felt that this was probably true. Ding Ming put the necklace around Ji Qinxue's neck and handed the blade to Ling Xingqi. "Thank you. What are you thanking us for?" Ji Qinxue was confused. Ding Ming sighed. These 3 items activated the divine light formation. Otherwise, our souls would have been destroyed. Ling Xingqi also sighed. In the great general's inheritance, he told me that in order to activate the energy source, we must unite and work together. I didn't know how to do this before. I was just trying to throw the equipment in, but I didn't expect it to work. Right now, the entire space was filled with the aura of the divine light energy. It was like warm sunlight sprinkling down on one's body, making one feel very comfortable. Even his internal injuries were slowly recovering. The speed was extremely slow, but it was a continuous recovery. Ling Xingqi said, "If you cultivate here, you will definitely experience a qualitative leap." Junling was very vigilant. "You'd better pray that when Yang and the other demon's martial artists don't wake up." Ling Xingqi glanced at her. "Are you afraid that Ling Xingwen will rise again?" Ding Ming suddenly let out a long sigh. "I'm afraid that the enemy will come at this time. That would be terrible." As soon as he said this, Junling and the other 2's expressions changed. This was because everyone could feel that there was another powerful fluctuation coming up from the heaven stairway. This was the aura of a god and a devil merging into one. No matter who it was, even if it was a warlord or warlord-level origin ability user, no one present would be able to resist it. Very quickly, this person appeared. Ding Meng and the other three's hearts sank at the same time, sinking into a boundless abyss. The thing they were most worried about had happened. This person was dressed in black from head to toe, and a black sheathed longsword was tucked in her belt. Shockingly, it was hidden front number 2, an ugly woman. An ugly woman swept her gaze over the surroundings before laughing out loud. Her laughter made one's hair stand on end. I was wondering why the two powerful auras suddenly disappeared. It turns out that everyone is out of luck. It's you again. Ji Qinxue was most afraid of this person. An ugly woman chuckled. Huh, you're here too. This time, you can completely relax. You won't be able to escape. The first person I'm going to play with is you. As she spoke, she even swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Ji Qinxue's entire body was covered in goosebumps. An ugly woman walked to a corner of the temple and pressed her hand on Wen Yang's back. A black light surged from her palm. It was obvious that she was injecting energy into him. Wen Yang quickly regained consciousness. He was also seriously injured, but the energy that an ugly woman had injected into him was still very considerable. His aura had already recovered to the level of an intermediate warlord. Wen Yang stood up and let out a long sigh. Who would have thought? Really, who would have thought? The powerful Ling Xingwen would actually disappear. It seems like you dealt with her. Ding Meng smiled bitterly. I already guessed that you wouldn't be so easy to deal with. I didn't think that you still had a trick up your sleeve. The person who pointed at him was an ugly woman number 2. Now, an ugly woman number 2's aura was even stronger than before. After the battle at the Apocalypse building, not only had she been treated, but her strength had also improved a lot. Wen Yang sighed. To be honest, I didn't expect to be the final winner. From the moment Ling Xingwen appeared, I felt that we should all be buried here. Who would have thought that you would kill her? This is something I never expected. Ding Meng remained silent. Wen Yang said, but I never really thought of dealing with you. Ding Meng muttered, I understand. What you want is the energy source. Wen Yang looked around. I definitely want this energy source, but I'm afraid that leaving you here will cause trouble in the future. You can even kill Ling Xingwen. After you recover, I can't think of anyone in the Federal Empire who can be your match. Ding Meng smiled. So I have to die, right? Wen Yang didn't answer the question directly. An ugly woman smiled sinisterly. It's good that you understand. I'm very envious of you. You're surrounded by beautiful women wherever you go. But today, you won't be able to keep the woman around you, right? Her gaze fell on Ji Qinxue again. I want this woman. Wen Yang said, you can't have this woman. An ugly woman was surprised. Why? Wen Yang said, Ji Qinyu is already dead. I'm here to marry Ji Qinxue. Only then can I continue to control the beta group. An ugly woman thought for a moment and said, all right then, as you wish. Wen Yang smiled again. Look, there are many other women here, and they're all not bad. You can choose from others. What he meant was that the two of them were already treating Ding Meng and the others as spoils of war to be divided. An ugly woman looked at Ling Xingqi and couldn't help but lick her lips. I've never played with such a tall foreign woman before. I'm definitely going to have this woman. Ling Xingqi had also never seen such a pervert before. She didn't even have the strength to react. Ding Meng suddenly smiled. It seems that if I object, I'll probably die even faster. An ugly woman was amused. You know yourself well. At this moment, Ding Meng slowly got up and sat between Ji Qinxue and Ling Xingqi. At the same time, he reached out and held the two women's slender waists. An ugly woman frowned. What are you doing? Ding Meng smiled and said, this is called dying under a peony flower. Even as a ghost, I'll still be romantic. This is my last condition. You won't refuse, right? An ugly woman smiled. Since you found the energy source, of course I'll agree. It's good to be able to enjoy it for a while now. Ding Meng turned his head and said, little sister, why don't you come over and sit on my leg? An ugly woman didn't object because she knew that Ding Meng wasn't such a frivolous person. There must be a deeper meaning behind his order. However, she still didn't understand. Right now, the four of them were all seriously injured. Facing Wen Yang and an ugly woman, there was no hope for them to turn the tables. In fact, Ji Qinxue also felt uncomfortable being hugged by Ding Meng. However, Ding Meng's palm gently patted her and Ling Xingqi's waists. This gesture meant that he wanted them to calm down. Sure enough, Ding Ming's forehead flashed slightly. It was an extremely strange red light. This detail couldn't be hidden from the other party. Wen Yang said, "The mark on your forehead doesn't seem to be the mark of the Mao Xing civilization, right?" Ding Ming said, "It seems that it's very difficult to hide anything from you." Wen Yang blinked and said, "If I asked you, you would probably reveal it, right?" Ding Ming said meaningfully, "That depends on whether you're sincere or not." Wen Yang smiled slyly. "What if my sincerity is that after you tell me, I'll let you leave this place?" Ding Ming also smiled. "You're sincere, but not sincere enough." Wen Yang stared at him. "What else do you want?" Ding Ming looked at the people around him. "I want to take all three of them with me." Wen Yang muttered, "In my impression, you shouldn't be so interested in women." Ding Ming laughed. "I'm not interested in the goddess of the Federal Empire. Then what kind of woman should I be interested in? Could it be that I'm interested in this hidden front number 2 beauty? You." An ugly woman's eyebrows furrowed. This was what she was most angry about in her life. At this time, Ding Ming's abnormal behavior had already made Wen Yang feel that something was wrong. A strange energy fluctuation appeared in the temple. This was also a new aura, different from the rich fragrance of Ling Xingwen. The fluctuation was getting stronger and stronger. When Yang's expression changed, he decisively ordered, "Take them down." An ugly woman moved quickly. Her body flashed and floated over, her hand already holding the hilt of her sword. But it was too late. At this moment, a fan-shaped red light descended from the sky, enveloping Ding Ming and the other three. This was clearly some kind of teleportation energy source. The moment the ugly woman collided with the red light, she was immediately bounced back. Moreover, she was sent flying far away. The power of the red light was not something that a person like her could shake. Ding Ming hugged the two beauties and remained motionless. "As you wish, the energy source of this place is yours. But I'll still come back for you. There are still many old scores between us. Sooner or later, we'll have to settle them." As soon as he finished speaking, Ding Ming and the other three immediately turned into white light and floated away, disappearing without a trace. The red light automatically retracted after they were teleported away, turning into specks of light until they disappeared. There really wasn't a trace left behind. Wen Yang and an ugly woman were stunned. Ding Ming had slipped away under their noses. After a long time, an ugly woman said, "What kind of teleportation array is this? It's much better than ours." Wen Yang's face darkened, and he did not answer. Of course, he could sense how pure and advanced the energy was. It was more like a kind of technological power. He did not expect Ding Ming to have such a trick up his sleeve. Now, only the unconscious Han Yin and the transit string were left in the temple. An ugly woman asked, "What should we do with these two?" It would be a lie to say that Wen Yang was not angry. He gritted his teeth and said, "Ding Ming knows the secret of solitary entropy. Unfortunately, he escaped. These two are not important at all. Throw them out." An ugly woman was a little unwilling. "Can't you leave them to me?" Wen Yang glanced at her. "They're not even virgins. Are you interested in them?" An ugly woman could only shut up. She was not interested in beautiful women who were not virgins. Chapter 982. In the depths of the vast universe, a dark shadow was moving slowly in a dark galaxy. It could only be seen at close range with the naked eye. Ding Ming opened his eyes in the darkness, and what appeared before him was the beehive hall of the solitary entropy land. At the critical moment, he had used the mark to establish a connection with the solitary entropy land of the Gray Plains, and used the antimatter reverse teleportation system to send the four of them back to the solitary entropy land. "Congratulations, you found the energy source." Sokka's voice rang out. Ding Ming turned his head and saw Sokka's standing beside the throne, operating a simulated scene. It was all graphics and symbols that Ding Ming could not understand. At this time, Ding Ming was still very weak, but he no longer felt dizzy when he saw the throne. This proved that his strength had greatly improved during this time. That was close. Ding Ming sighed softly. Sokka stopped working turned around, and walked over. You've activated the antimatter reverse teleportation system, which proves that you've just encountered danger. Dingming could only send a telepathic message to Sokka's, telling him what he had seen and heard while he was away. Sure enough, Sokka's knew the answer to all his questions. No wonder the energy source is not bad. It was left behind by the Pearl people of Mao Xing. You've actually found it. Dingming spread his hands. But now the energy source is in Wan Yang's hands. Sokka said, "No, I've sent the core energy source over. Although Wan Yang has a lot of energy, it's far less than what you brought over." Oh, Dingming was surprised. How is that possible? Sokka has explained, when you activated the teleportation system just now, the solitary entropy land had already detected a large amount of divine light biotechnology's energy from your coordinates, so I conveniently teleported you and your companions back along with the energy source. As he spoke, he waved his hand, and a simulated scene appeared in front of him. This was the divine light array formation in the temple. Countless trident stars danced around the core. This is one of the more advanced sealing systems in Xinguang technology. It's not wrong for you to think of it as a formation, but it's actually a secondary space that randomly changes its location. Unless someone guides the precise coordinates, it's very difficult for even the silent entropy surveillance system to discover it. These trident mirrors are the sealed core energy source. Because it was brought from the central galaxy by the Mao Xing's royal family, its energy is still too great for this three-dimensional world. If it were not sealed and exposed to the air, not only would it attract the attention of other races, it would also cause great destruction. Therefore, it was set in a fixed mirror form to make it easier for the humans of this world to use. Sokka waved his hand again, and all the stars converged into the central mirror image, turning into a divine singularity. Sokka waved his hand again, and the singularity entered a transparent petri dish. I have injected this energy source into the hyperspace engine. Dingming saw it again. The crystal ball, representing the solitary entropy land, appeared again. Last time, the energy progress bar showed 5%, but this time it showed 33%. The engine's energy source had obviously increased. But the solitary entropy land was a product of great power, and the 28% increase in energy source was an astronomical figure. No wonder everyone wanted to get their hands on the Forbidden Land. Sokka said casually, "It's only half. It's far from the engine's starting standard, but it's still not bad. The solitary entropy land can now use many systems." Dingming said again, "Sokka, you said that when Yang did not control the core energy source, then he must have control of the remaining energy source." Sokka nodded. There's indeed a lot of energy left in that secondary space, so you have to be careful. The Hidden Front has control of this energy source, and many other threats will be born. Now is not the time for us to leave this galaxy. Dingming said, "Then what's the deal with Ling Xingwen?" Sokka was silent for a long time before he sighed. "You should be glad that you did not use the Ardent Sun Divine Power's ultimate secret technique at the last moment." Dingming asked why. Sokka said, "The divine light formation of the Mao Xing royal family is located in the stacked spaces of the secondary space. No matter how powerful you are, you will not be able to open a wormhole. The sealing system will not allow it at all. Only the hyperspace engine of the solitary entropy land has the power to teleport you away. If you had used the Ardent Sun Divine Power at that time, you would have suffered a backlash. In other words, you would not have been able to teleport Ling Xingwen away." Dingming could not help but shudder. Divine light technologies really did have its strengths. Sokka said seriously, "Actually, I did not tell you about the 6 dominions in detail back then because I was worried that you would have a mental breakdown after encountering a strong enemy. However, I can tell you now. Among the 6 dominions, there is a nation called the Night Phoenix. It is second only to the AIG Star Nation, and its ruler is Ming Yen. This person is not only the wife of the Lingtian sovereign, but also the sovereign's enemy. She will also be the strongest enemy you will face in the future." Dingming was shocked. Could Ling Xingwen be the successor of Goddess Ming Yen? Sokka shook its head and said, "Ling Xingwen is far from qualified to be the successor. However, from the information you provided, her martial arts techniques came from the Night Phoenix Star Nation. The energy she obtained should be at the level of a beginner martial venerable. All of you combined forces at that time were no match for her. Fortunately, the royal family of the Mao Star Nation provided an abundant amount of energy. Furthermore, you comprehended the stellar spiral origin at the last moment and were able to defeat her. Ding Meng's train of thought jumped very quickly. The Demon Sky Empire has their eyes on the royal family of the Mao Star Nation. Could it be that the Night Phoenix Star Nation has their eyes on them as well? Sokka has said, the demon's pursuit of the Mao Star Nation is traceable, but I don't think that's the case for the Night Phoenix Star Nation. They might have randomly placed units in this star system. Their goal is very simple, and that is to come for entropy solitude. Ding Meng nodded. He could understand this train of thought. The Ling Tian King was a peerless expert. Even if he escaped from the AI G Star Nation with injuries, the Night Phoenix Star Nation would not give up on pursuing him. This would explain why Ling Xingwen had been hiding for so many years. She was looking for clues about the AI G Star Nation. Sokka said, fortunately, you eliminated her. If she was really alive, she would have sent information about entropy solitude back to the Night Phoenix Star Nation. Then, we would be in big trouble. However, once she dies, the connection with the Night Phoenix Star Nation will be severed. Ming Yan's people will come looking for us sooner or later. We have to hurry up during this period. Ding Meng said, are the martial arts techniques of the Night Phoenix Star Nation that powerful? Sokka said disdainfully, they're all unorthodox. The Night Phoenix Star Nation is mostly populated by women, and they cultivate the art of seduction. In fact, this is similar to the art of the demonic Sky Empire. It is to control a person's emotions, mind, and desires. It is a man's instinct to love beauty. Therefore, when you fight with Ling Xingwen, you will see a lot of realistic illusions. If your mind is not strong enough, you will easily fall under her skirt. Ding Meng agreed. Thinking back to the time when the Monarch King was so powerful, he still fell for Ming Yan's tricks. Indeed, we cannot underestimate her. Sokka said, it is good that you can think like that. Ding Meng frowned and said, that's right, I thought of something. Why would there be a martial artist who cultivates both gods and demons? Sokka pondered and said, your previous guess was not wrong. The soul of the Mao Star Nation's Grand Elder has indeed been reborn. However, I am unable to find out the exact location of this person for the time being. Ding Meng was surprised. Even you don't know? Sokka was speechless. I know all the major events within 5,000 light years, such as species wars, disasters, evolution, star system changes. However, individuals are too small for me to know everything. I'm also guessing that the Mao Star Nation's Grand Elder is seeking a new path of survival. You must know that for any species in the universe, the first problem they face is the problem of survival. Species are constantly evolving and developing. From a philosophical point of view, the Mao Star Nation's Grand Elder was abandoned by the laws of development. The Divine Light and Demonic Sky Empire's martial artists have both been dormant in the Saint Glory star system for tens of thousands of years. During this time, even the human world has moved from an agricultural civilization to an era of origin technology. By the same logic, the gods and demons are also evolving. It is not clear whether the dual cultivation of gods and demons is a way out, but since it exists, there must be a reason for its existence. You will have to personally investigate these specific reasons. The Hidden Front and the Black Palm. Aren't these the main suspects? Ding Meng nodded. Understood. Sokka said, our true enemies are the people from the Six Weaves. I have a feeling that we will encounter them sooner or later. Before that happens, you must be strong enough. You must reach the threshold to activate solitary entropy as soon as possible. So your mission is still to find the energy source. Ding Meng smiled bitterly. The energy source this time is probably the largest energy source in the Saint Glory star system, right? Where else can we find such a massive energy source? Sokka said, go find the Demonic Sky Empire's base in the Saint Glory star system. The Mao Star Nation's royal family has the Divine Light energy source, and the demons also have the corresponding energy source. Otherwise, there's no way to explain how those people from the hidden front could cultivate. Ding Ming was stunned. Demon energy? Sokka said, don't underestimate demon energy. As long as solitary entropy operates normally, even the largest amount of demon energy can be converted into divine light essence. This requires the divine light martial artists to do the work. This is also the main reason why I didn't eliminate your 3 companions. With so many external enemies, you will need a group of helpers. Besides, they're all martial artists who have passed down their legacies. Ding Ming asked, where are they now? In the monarch's chambers. Sokka waved his hand, and 3 screens appeared in the air. Ji Qinxue, Ling Xingqi, and Jun Ling could be seen in different rooms. All 3 of them were unconscious. Sokka explained, when they teleported you all back, their injuries were too severe. They couldn't resist the invasion of the teleportation energy at all. Now, they need to recover. Ding Ming smiled bitterly. But I don't have any energy to speak of in my body right now. I also need to recover. Sokka said, don't worry, I didn't put all of the core energy into the engine. Of course, I took you into consideration. You still have a divine Aero spaceship and 2 members of the Mouse Star Nation's royal family with the Federation. I've already transferred some of the energy to them. What you need to do now is to speed up your recovery and learn new martial arts techniques. Strive to become stronger so that you won't be so passive when you encounter the Night Phoenix martial artists again. Chapter 983. Ling Tian King's palace was located in another dimension. As Sokka summoned a portal of light and entered, Ding Ming found that the palace was no different from the core hall. It had a dome over 100 meters high, a hemispherical hall, and 4 walls in the shape of a silver beehive. It was completely empty. Rather than calling it a palace, it would be more accurate to call it a plaza. The emperor lived a simple life. He put all his resources into cultivation, so there's nothing extra in the palace, Sokka explained plainly. Ding Ming had a strange thought. It was not difficult to deduce from the palace that Ling Tian King was either a cultivation maniac or a straight man. How did such a person manage to get his hands on the goddess of beauty? Sokka seemed to know what he was thinking. Don't you have so many women following you around? As long as a man is strong enough, there will naturally be women following him. That was the logic, but Ding Ming still felt that the emperor's palace was a little too monotonous. At this moment, Sokka clapped his hands. Light bloomed all around, and the scenery changed. The entire palace instantly turned into a place filled with birds and flowers. An exquisite palace stood on the grass, and, in the distance, there was a beautiful beach facing the sea. It was a picturesque scene, with flowers blooming in spring and white clouds in the blue sky. Ding Ming found himself standing on the steps of the palace. In fact, he had experienced many similar illusions, but this time he was still stunned. It was not because this place was too beautiful, but because this place was not an illusion. The stairs were real, the palace was real, and the scenery was real. Not only were these real, even the sunlight in the sky, the fragrance of flowers in the air, and the chirping of insects in the grass were all real. They were all living creatures. This was simply inconceivable. Sokka explained, this is one of the new applications of subspace technology developed by the engineers of AIG. It has already surpassed Xinguang biotechnology space and is enough to pass off as real. The palace has more than 3,000 scenes for you to choose from. As he spoke, the scenery before him changed at an extremely fast speed. There were bustling cities, snowy peaks, desert cliffs, deep seabed, celestial rings and nebulae, space fortresses, starship interiors, the Great Wall of Steel, alien ruins. All of them were extremely beautiful. Ding Ming had seen some before, and some he had never seen before. It was simply dazzling and overwhelming. Sokka clapped his hands again, and Ding Ming found that 3 fan-shaped subspaces had appeared around him. Ji Qinxue and the other 2 were lying unconscious at the head of their beds. However, from the vision provided by Sokka, Ding Ming could clearly see the energy flow in their bodies, which was displayed in the form of data patterns. The vision changed again and again. It actually used 3D modeling, psychokinesis vision, spectral vision, macroscopic human body, microscopic cell vision, and many other types of vision to scan. It could be said that the three women had no secrets in Ding Meng's eyes other than their memories. After observing for a while, Ding Meng blushed a little. This was because he inadvertently used his X-ray vision to take a look. He found that Ling Xingqi's pair of jade legs were really long and slender. Even when Ji Chenxua was lying down, a certain part of his body was round and big. Staring at it for a long time could easily make one's mind go haywire. Sokka said, "All right, now what you need to do is to recover and learn." Ding Meng found that pieces of true essence blue crystals had appeared around him. The red crystals were the essence of Xingguang, but the blue crystals were even more precious. At the same time, these blue crystals could also release telepathic thoughts. Ding Meng immediately felt that this was Sokka's transmission. Ding Meng sat cross-legged, closed his eyes, and entered the elementary consciousness space. At the same time, he slowly absorbed the energy transmitted from the blue crystals around him. Sokka's voice sounded in his ear. This is the energy preserved by the Mao Xing imperial family. It will be extremely effective for your injuries. In truth, Ding Meng had already seen that the ordinary origin points instantly returned to normal. Each one of them glowed brightly, and the energy within them was even more abundant than before. Next, the diamond origin points also quickly returned to their solid state. The purity of the blue crystal's energy could be imagined. This was equivalent to raising an ordinary origin ability user to the war god level in just 1 minute. Meanwhile, the vortex form would take a lot of time. Fortunately, the blue crystal's energy was abundant. In Ding Meng's consciousness, all 10 origin points were now glowing vortexes. However, it was still not enough for him to advance to the star spin stage. Ding Meng was a little puzzled. When I was in the temple, I immediately broke through to the star spin stage. Why can't I do it now? Sokka said, "That's because there was enough energy at the time. At the same time, the formation sensed the existence of your art AIG, which created the illusion of a forced breakthrough." Ding Meng said blankly, "I still don't understand." Sokka explained, "Let me give you a simple explanation. Let's treat the star spin origin as a unit of measurement. If you want to break through to the star spin stage, under normal circumstances, you would need to use 10 units of divine light energy. However, in that extreme situation, there was enough energy, so you used 100 units to break through. It looked like a breakthrough, but in reality, it looked like a form, but it didn't. Why is that? It's because you don't have the support of a cultivation method. Not only does this cause a huge waste of energy, but it also creates a situation. Take the storm gathering, for example. Do you have this kind of illusion? Many of your opponent's energy indexes are clearly not as high as yours, but they can still fight back and forth with you? Ding Meng nodded. That's true. Ling Xingqi is a classic example. Sokka said, "For a long time, your martial arts have developed a very bad characteristic in all kinds of battles. This characteristic is very similar to that of the monarch when he was alive. That is, you rely on your high energy index to crush your opponents in a simple and crude manner. It looks pretty cool, but once you encounter opponents like Ling Xingqi, Ling Xingwen, and Guan Wuming at the storm gathering, your battles will become very troublesome and tricky." Ding Meng said, "Is there any way to change that?" Sokka said, "Based on your characteristics, I've already designed a cultivation plan for you. The first thing you need to do is improve your telekinesis. You have to understand that the stronger you get in the future, the more you'll realize that telekinesis will be far more useful than source power. No matter how strong source power is, it's just a string of numbers in the end. Telekinesis, on the other hand, has endless transformations. The rarest thing about it is that your telekinesis is the most expensive universal application in the universe." Ding Meng suddenly thought of Nanxuan. "Then what about transformational telekinesis?" Sokka said, "Nanxuan only made you guys think that she's very strong at this stage. In fact, in the later stages, what she can do, applied telekinesis can also do? Ding Ming asked curiously. I've always heard from others that applied telekinesis is very rare. How precious is it exactly? Sokka said, let me explain it to you this way. In this main star system, only you, Lan Bing, Lu Qing, and Ji Chinxue have awakened applied telekinesis. Strictly speaking, you four are the only lucky ones in the human world. The probability of this happening is 1 in 2 trillion. Bloody hell, this probability was several thousand times lower than the Federal Empire's lottery jackpot. It's very easy for any race in the universe to give birth to a warlock, but to awaken an applied telekinesis warlock is a blessing. And to give birth to 2 to 4 applied telekinesis warlocks is the capital for that race to rise to prominence. Unfortunately, the human world is a theoretically inferior race and doesn't understand this principle. Sokka's tone was somewhat regretful. Even a country as strong as AI Jing has only given birth to 2 applied telekinesis warlocks. And Lord Lingtian, who dominated the galaxy, didn't even have telekinesis. Tell me, isn't the human world a little stupid? How is this just stupid? This was practically destroying their own foundation. If other civilizations gave birth to such a warlock, they would probably treat them like their ancestors and raise them up. Only humans would kill each other for petty profits. Who cares if you're a warlock? If you get in my way of getting rich, I'll kill you. Sokka said, your telekinesis is currently stuck at a very crude level. This has something to do with Little Rascal and Little Love, the 2 Mao royalties' recognition of applied telekinesis. After all, their knowledge is too shallow. Sokka's was the only one who dared to evaluate Little Rascal and Little Love like this. At this moment, Ding Ming felt the blue crystals around him injecting a huge amount of telepathic information into him. For words suddenly appeared in his vision. Galaxy Codex. Holy shit, this is actually an 8-star telekinesis cultivation technique manual. Although Lord Lingtian didn't awaken telekinesis when he was alive, he was passionate about collecting all kinds of high-level cultivation techniques. This Galaxy Codex can be said to be the most comprehensive telekinesis cultivation technique I've come across so far. Warlocks of any type can find the corresponding cultivation method from it. Ding Ming, I've analyzed your brainwaves before. They have the characteristics of displacement kinetic energy, mental illusion, blazing flame, electromagnetic pulse, and core fusion. Ding Ming more or less knew about this. Origin force and telekinesis were complementary. Origin force was divided into 9 major categories, namely heat, ice, rigid body, electromagnetism, light speed, weak transformation, strong transformation, biochemistry, and gravity. From there, it extended into many different branches. It was the same for telekinesis, which was divided into 9 major categories, namely blazing flame, freezing, solid, electromagnetism, rapid transformation, convergence, abnormal movement, divine sense, and conduction. As for the mental, illusory, kinetic, and transformational types, they were all branches. Sokka said, on the other hand, general purpose and application types fuse everything from the 9 major categories. They're the origin and transcend the 9 major categories. So, you should understand the importance of telekinesis now, right? Ding Ming had already seen the contents of the Galaxy Codex. In addition to the 9 major categories, there were actually 8 other categories, namely tidal, storm, psionic, superpower, soundwave, mechanical, cellular, and magic. He didn't expect there to be other rare types of telekinesis in the universe. It was simply unheard of, as expected of an 8-star cultivation technique. The value of this codex was indescribable. It was estimated to be worth dozens of star systems. Should I cultivate in all the major categories? Ding Ming's words were shocking. Theoretically speaking, yes. Sokka's replied unhurriedly. Ding Ming was overjoyed. If he could cultivate well, wouldn't he be truly invincible? However, Sokka's poured a bucket of cold water on him. According to the preliminary assessment, it would take 780 million years to master all the major categories, but with your excellent aptitude, it can be shortened to 93 million years. This speed is already very fast. Ding Ming was immediately amused. 93 million years? Putting aside whether he could live that long, just the resources he would need during the cultivation period would probably be measured in the energy of a supercluster, right? Yes, as expected of the supreme codex in the universe. Was this something humans could cultivate? Chapter 984. Sokka's evaluation was indeed frightening, but Ding Ming still had to read it carefully. Even with his extraordinary memory, he felt that he had spent a long time studying it. At this time, he glanced outside and saw that Ji Qinxue and the other two had woken up. The three girls were surprised at first, probably because they did not know where they were. Then, they quickly sensed a large amount of energy around them. The three of them were not fools. They immediately sat cross-legged and closed their eyes to cultivate, fighting for this rare opportunity. According to the data vision, Ji Qinxue recovered the fastest. Her current origin ability index had broken through 3 billion points, probably due to the effect of the divine light necklace. Ling Xingqi was next, with an index of 2.6 billion points. Junling was slightly slower, with 1.2 billion points. I have to hurry as well. Ding Ming's mind moved, and he entered the intermediate consciousness space from the beginner consciousness space. In the past, entering the intermediate consciousness space required a large amount of energy as support, but now it was easy, mainly because of the leap in strength. The intermediate consciousness space displayed a splendid galaxy map, but the image was somewhat blurry. This was because this space was filled with a mass of chaotic, misty, transparent energy. This was telekinesis. If one looked carefully at the sea of stars and energy, it was not difficult to see that there was a connection between the two. The sea of stars was made up of countless starlight. The Codex's explanation was that these starlight were called star-charged particles. In the microscopic world, they were small force fields, and these force fields could be transformed into kinetic force fields, electromagnetic force fields, and flame force fields at any time. This was the general purpose of applied telekinesis. The specific training was to stabilize these star-charged particles, changing them from a chaotic state to a controllable state. Ding Ming focused and began to manipulate the star-charged particles to compress, twist, stretch, blend, and rotate. This was like polishing an embryo, finally carving it into a gem. In the past, telekinesis dots, telekinesis strings, and telekinesis walls were all used on a macroscopic level. Now, he was polishing and cultivating on a microscopic level, thus making his telekinesis purer and more effective. This process was very tiring. After creating tens of thousands of particles, Ding Ming had to stop and rest. However, judging from the quantity, he would need to polish at least hundreds of millions of star-charged particles to complete the transformation. This was a very large project. As time passed, the image of the sea of stars in the intermediate space of consciousness became clearer and more vivid. The atomized energy disappeared and formed a circle of stable energy structure. From the shape, it looked like a Tai Chi trigrams. This was the most profound principle of the universe. However, this was only the first step. The next step was to cultivate. Although it was the dream of all warlocks to cultivate all elements, Ding Ming knew that this was not realistic. The major techniques in the Codex were broad and profound. Using the blazing telekinesis as an example, the basic technique was bright flame. To put it more clearly, it was telekinesis that could directly turn telekinesis into flames. Next was spirit flame, which was equivalent to origin flame. Next was blazing star, which was equivalent to flame energy turning into a solid state. Then there were star flame, constant current, silent sun. These were all extremely profound telekinesis techniques. The last one mentioned in the blazing class was supernova constant blazing flame. Ding Ming did not look at the specifics of the technique. He only glanced at the effects. This telekinesis technique could directly absorb the blazing star and turn it into an energy formation. It could easily ignite a galaxy and turn it into a sea of hellfire. No matter how well-equipped or large an interstellar fleet was, it would still be turned into ashes. The Galactic Codex's techniques were truly frightening. This was only one of the categories. Therefore, instead of cultivating all elements, it was better to focus on one. Ding Ming decisively chose the electromagnetism major. Although the Federal Empire had electromagnetism origin ability users, there were no electromagnetism warlocks. When he was cultivating at Starlight University, he had heard from his mentor that electromagnetism warlocks were extremely powerful. Light, electricity, magnetic field, electric field, friction, electromagnetism, heat, kinetic energy, chemical reaction, particle motion, strong and weak forces. These were all manifestations of electromagnetism. A classic example was an electromagnetism warlock. As long as their brain development was high enough, they could even invade the interstellar fleet's communication system, ion transmission, and quantum radar. Every word and action of yours, even the secrets hidden in your brain, will be stolen by them. They were truly omnipotent. In the Codex, there was also a telekinesis unit that Ding Ming had come across for the first time. Iha. This was the unit used by the people of AG to measure telekinesis. Because the Federal Empire's understanding of telekinesis was still shallow, they did not have a unit to measure it. If this IHA was compared to the Origin Ability Index, it was basically 1,000. When Ding Ming had fought against Nanshuan at the Fengyun Gathering, Nanshuan had converted 600 billion points of Origin Ability Index. In reality, it was not difficult to figure out that the upper limit of Nanshuan's telekinesis was around 600 million IHA. To put it simply, it was 600 million points. However, this number could only be low and not high. The reason was simple. That was the limit. Ding Ming looked at his data vision. His own telekinesis index was 290 million IHA. His telekinesis was indeed one level lower than IHA's. Ding Ming once again focused his mind and mobilized the star Lotus in his space of consciousness. His eyes fiercely exerted force in front of him. A series of crackling sounds could be heard from 30 meters away. 7 or 8 electric sparks exploded in sequence, creating a scalp-numbing shockwave. This was a very simple electromagnetism psychic technique. Ding Ming nodded in satisfaction. How was this Astral Ocean Codex some high-level technique? It was simply a martial arts secret technique. It was a treasure trove that contained countless treasures. After cultivating the electromagnetism technique, Ding Ming was surprised to find that the first origin of the vortex in his body had finally transformed into a star vortex. The energy from the surrounding true yuan blue crystals poured into it, and the star vortex absorbed it very well. At the same time, Ding Ming also noticed that the first origin of the star vortex was not a single point. This was because as the first 3 points took shape, the connection between them could be said to be frightening. When Ding Ming first cultivated the diamond star technique, the points formed lines of origin power, the lines formed planes, and the planes formed a polyhedron in his body. It was this polyhedron that allowed Ding Ming to perform martial arts such as the Overlord's Mountain Crushing Force, the Holy Radiant Tiger Sun Palm, and the Diamond Star Melting Technique. But now, with each star vortex as the center, there were countless tiny points, lines, and planes around it. Any one of these points surpassed the ordinary origin of the diamond star technique. It was like a galaxy. The origin was the star, and the other points were planets orbiting around it. There were also meteorite belts, dark matter, interstellar dust, and so on. Together, they formed this star vortex. There were also points, lines, and planes between the 3 star vortex origins, forming all kinds of strange energy structures. Each of them shone brightly, but they were integrated into one. It was like a Great Wall fortress in space. It was truly a spectacular sight. Ding Ming did some calculations. Just the first 3 star vortices had as many as 10,894 tiny origin points. This was really a lot to train in. However, he finally understood now. Only by developing the brain would one's telekinesis increase. The increase in telekinesis would promote the growth of the origin points. This was the true mutual promotion and complementation. At this stage of cultivation, it had to be said that Little Rascal and Little Love's knowledge was indeed limited. Perhaps this had something to do with their personalities. They pursued offense, strong offense, and toughness, so their martial arts and techniques were a little rough. On the other hand, the Sovereign King's martial arts and techniques pursued a solid foundation and excellent quality. The Star Vortex origins were not the final form of the Sovereign King's origin points. Even Sokka's did not have a clear conclusion on this point. This was because there might be existences of a higher realm above the Sovereign King's origin points. Even Sokka's had never seen a powerhouse of that level. Perhaps that powerhouse was the god who created this universe. All of this was too far-fetched. After an unknown amount of time, Ding-Ming finally completed the first 3 Star Vortex origins. There were only 3 points, but from afar, they looked like a magnificent palace. Just as he was about to proceed with the 4th point, Ding-Ming suddenly realized that the energy fluctuations around him had disappeared. He opened his eyes and saw that the true essence blue crystals were gone. "What's going on?" Sokka said helplessly. "You've used up 8 true essence blue crystals." Ding-Ming was puzzled. "Didn't I send back so much divine light energy?" Sokka said, "I'm sorry. I've put most of it into the hyperspace engine. I only planned to give you 8 blue crystals, but I didn't expect you to improve so quickly. You used them all up in just a few tries." Ding-Ming was amused again. This feeling was like having a good meal, only to be told that there was no more food. It was better not to eat. Sokka said, "But look at your data vision now. Your improvement is very impressive." The data showed that his current psychokinesis index was 510 million IHA, and his origin energy index was 2 trillion points. This was equivalent to the combination of a high-level warlock and a mid-level martial venerable. If he were to encounter someone like Ling Xingwen again, he would be able to beat the crap out of them. All right then. Ding-Ming was also very helpless. In the end, solitary entropy was still more important than him. Only after solitary entropy was fully repaired would he be considered a qualified successor to the Sovereign King. He would truly have the capital to compete with the other interstellar martial artists. Sokka still understood his thoughts. "Without energy, you can cultivate the new martial arts technique that I've transmitted to you. Actually, there is no need to cultivate the martial arts techniques now. Basically, they could be guided into the consciousness space by divine sense, and the essence could be grasped instantly. Those were the precious battle experiences of the Sovereign King when he was alive." A Generations Prodigy was divided into 3 chapters: Illusory Spirit, Void, and Hyperdimensional. Each chapter contained a large number of martial arts techniques. Just like the Divine Sun art, they were all systematic martial arts techniques. At this time, Ding-Ming's gaze fell on the fan-shaped subspace. He couldn't help but be shocked. The data showed that Ji Qinchua's origin energy index had broken through 300 billion points. Ling Xingqi had surpassed him and broken through 450 billion points, and the most exaggerated was Jun Ling, who actually reached 700 billion points. Sokka's tone was also very surprised. "She's a very good seedling. Her talent isn't inferior to yours. Her learning ability is very strong, and her speed is also very fast. Most importantly, she has cultivated many different elements. If it weren't for the lack of energy, she would also be an important target to nurture." Ding-Ming nodded. He had seen Junling's talent a long time ago. It should be known that Junling wasn't a divine light martial artist who had received a pure inheritance, but now she was almost promoted to a low-level martial venerable. Sokka said, "Their energy is almost depleted. Talk to them. Solitary entropy also needs someone to protect it, but you still have to keep the Sovereign King's information a secret." Chapter 985. The palace had returned to its original form. A beautiful and stylish villa stood on the cliff with birds chirping and flowers blooming. In the distance was the vast sea, and flocks of seagulls were flying over the sea. As they sensed the energy fluctuations and the chirping of birds and insects, The three women on the lawn opened their eyes at the same time. The three of them were a little confused, but more surprised. Not only had their injuries healed, but their strength had also increased by several times. When they turned their heads again, they saw Ding Ming standing on the steps of the villa. Junling rushed over in a few strides. "Where are we?" Ding Ming said, "This is the silent entropy." The three of them widened their eyes. "Is this what the legendary silent entropy looks like?" Ding Ming couldn't help but transmit the information about entropy to them, but the three of them had blank expressions on their faces. "What's wrong?" Ding Ming was puzzled. Ling Xingqi was the first to react. "Ding Ming, I can't sense your aura at all." Junling also had a look of disbelief. "Boss, are you saying that you're no longer on the same level as us?" Ding Ming said, "This is all given to us by the temple's energy source." He did not dare to say that this was only a small part of the energy source. Most of it had gone into the hyperspace engine. If they really absorbed all of it, they probably could not absorb it all. Sakas had formulated a training plan and distributed the energy according to everyone's physical condition. Ji Qinxue was in a daze. She felt like everything was just a dream. She could not help but sigh. So many people died in the temple before, and this is what we get in return. She was obviously lamenting Ji Qinyu. After all, that was her sister. In the end, she still died in the vortex of the battle for the energy source. Ling Xingqi also gave a rare bitter smile. To be honest, even I didn't realize that Xingwen was actually a warrior from a higher civilization. Ding Ming said, "That's why the silent entropy still needs everyone's protection. I'm willing to stay." Junling raised his hand decisively. "I just don't know if that housekeeper senior will agree." Ding Ming smiled. He was well aware of Junling's thoughts. As long as she could greatly increase her strength by cultivating martial arts, she would be happy even if you asked her to sleep in the mud, not to mention a treasured land like the solitary entropy. Of course, Sokka's voice rang out, but only his voice could be heard. You can still rest for a while. The antimatter reverse teleportation system is about to be repaired. You can return to the Federal Empire very soon. Ding Ming and the other three entered the villa. Although the facilities in the villa were complete, they were all energy forms. The four of them could only sit on the sofa. Since Junling had decided to stay in the silent entropy, then everyone had to decide where to go next. Ling Xingqi took the initiative and said, "It's time to fulfill my promise. I've decided to follow the princess and serve her." Ji Qinxue said, "I've experienced a lot ever since I entered the Federation. It's time for me to return to the Empire." Ding Ming was somewhat surprised. "Why return to the Empire?" Ji Qinxue sighed and said, "Qinyu has been spoiled since she was young. In the end, it led to such a tragedy. I'm partly responsible." Ling Xingqi empathized with her experience. "Ji Qinyu's matter isn't your fault. Not everyone who enters the temple can escape unscathed. We only survive because of the protection of the Mengmiao royal family and the solitary entropy senior." Ji Qinxue said, "But I still have to go back." Ling Xingqi was puzzled. "Why?" Ji Qinxue sighed and said, "The Beta group was founded by the ancestors of the Ji family. It was previously under Chun Yu's control. I believe that she wouldn't do anything to harm a sect. However, it's not good if it fell into the hands of Wen Yang or the Hidden Front. I think that Wen Yang and the others haven't returned to the Empire yet. It might still be too late." "It's too late." Sokka's voice rang out again. Ji Qinxue said in surprise, "Please enlighten me, Senior." Sokka's also sighed softly. "Although I'm not clear about the situation in the Federal Empire, I think that the situation there has changed. It's been 6 years since you guys sent back the message of the solitary entropy. 6 years have passed." The four of them were shocked. Time passed the fastest when cultivating. It felt like they had only cultivated for 5 or 6 hours, but 6 years had passed in the blink of an eye. Ding Ming also came to a realization. 6 years was enough for Wen Yang and the others to use the remaining energy of the temple. Perhaps the situation in the Federal Empire had changed a long time ago. Ji Qinxue's expression became firm. "All the more reason for me to go back." "All right." Ding Ming nodded silently. He didn't look happy, but he wasn't disappointed either. Ji Qinxue stared at him. Ding Ming, thank you so much for this journey. I'm especially grateful for your protection and care. Ding Ming waved his hand. We're all martial artists of the divine light. You're welcome. No, I'm serious. Ji Qinshue's eyes flashed. If it weren't for you, I might have died a long time ago. But I'm sorry, I can't accompany you anymore. I have to go back. Ding Ming didn't say anything. Ling Xingqi saw this and quickly gave Junling a look. Junling wasn't stupid. He took the initiative to stand up. The scenery outside is pretty good. I'll go out with the young mistress to relax. This reason wasn't very clever, but Ding Ming and Ling Xingqi were the only ones left in the hall. For a moment, the atmosphere was a little gloomy because the time of departure was coming. Parting ways was never a pleasant thing. Are you sure you can handle returning to the Empire this time? Ding Ming took the initiative to ask. Ji Qinshuo said, I'm now a beginner-level interstellar martial artist. There aren't many people in the Empire who can beat me. Ding Ming said, that's not necessarily true. Wen Yang and the rest also have control of the remaining divine light energy. Don't underestimate them. There are also those forces hiding in the dark. Ji Qinshuo said, don't worry, I'll take good care of myself. This trip to the Federation made me feel a lot of emotions, but I also gain a lot. The main thing is that I met you. This is a very fortunate thing. It's just a pity that I have my own matters to attend to. I can't be with you. The meaning of these words was very obvious. Along the way, her attitude towards Ding Ming had changed from indifference to admiration. She had a good impression of Ding Ming. After all, a strong person like Ding Ming was one of the best. Ding Ming also admired her beauty. He had browsed through all the private photos in the Divine Light Necklace. Ji Qinshuo also trusted him very much and had even invested in the Bingy group. However, the words, I can't be with you, seemed to be hinting at something. It inevitably made people feel a little melancholy. Fortunately, Ji Qinshuo took the initiative to explain. Don't misunderstand. If Her Highness wants to summon me, I can come back at any time. Ding Ming was silent. Then, he said, once you're at the Beidou group, if you have any difficulties, you must inform me. Ji Qinshuo smiled. As long as you have time, you can also come to the Empire to look for me at any time. I'll definitely welcome you. Ding Ming joked. What if Lil Bing and the others want to come along? Ji Qinshuo smiled even more happily. I'll welcome them too. Perhaps I'll welcome them even more. Your wives are all very outstanding. After spending some time with them, I realize that they're just like you. They're all good people. Of course, my little sister is also not bad. The Alloy Demon King had been a straight man for 10,000 years. This time, he finally mustered up the courage to speak. I suddenly want to ask you a question. Ji Qinshuo said, what question? Ahem. Ding Ming was a little embarrassed. If, and I'm saying if, one day you choose a partner, would you be willing to inform me? Ji Qinshuo smiled again. This time it was a sly smile. Are you asking about the image of my Prince Charming? Ding Ming coughed dryly again. I'm just asking casually. Ji Qinshuo smiled. If there really is such a person, I'll compare him to you. It'll only be possible if he meets your standards. This seemed like a joke, but it was actually sincere. She had received Ding Ming's memories and telepathic messages. Not only did she admire those people in Ding Ming's life who were both inspiring and tragic, she also respected Ding Ming's fearless and courageous spirit. This was also the reason why she had a good impression of Ding Ming. Ding Ming asked calmly, isn't that me? Ji Qinshuo stopped smiling and said apologetically, perhaps. I'm sorry, but I'm not mentally prepared yet. Perhaps one day, when I've thought it through, fate will naturally come. Perhaps tomorrow, or perhaps many years later. Please forgive me for being a little selfish in this aspect. I think you can understand. No matter what, I'm still very grateful to you for this journey. I believe that we'll meet again one day. What do you think? Ding Ming nodded. He knew that it was not that Ji Qinshuo could not accept him, but that he could not accept polygamy in the Federation. However, who could say for sure when it came to fate? Ding Ming's mentality was still very calm. A gentle and graceful woman was a gentleman's dream. If he could not get her, then there was no need to force it. He would just go with the flow. Ji Chinxua pointed out the window and said, "Look, the scenery outside is so beautiful. Let's go out for a walk before the senior activates the teleportation. Let's not waste the good time together." The bedroom mode was also set to day and night. At this moment, the fiery red Liang star was floating on the surface of the sea. The afterglow of the setting sun dyed the sea red and also made the beach golden. Ding Meng and Ji Chinxua walked in the beautiful afterglow. The two of them chatted and laughed, looking very comfortable. From afar, the scene of the two of them walking side by side was like a poetic painting. Junling lay on a tree branch, leisurely playing with his cookery knife. Is this what a person in love looks like? Ling Xingqi sat by the flower bed below. Can't you tell? Junling said, I've never been in the legendary relationship. How can I tell? Ling Xingqi was speechless. I forgot that you grew up on Madison. Junling said, so I want to try the taste of love too. Ling Xingqi was even more speechless. With your qualifications, as long as you agree, there are many young talents in the Federation for you to choose from. Junling said, my standards are different from bosses. What standards do you have? Ling Xingqi could not help but be curious. Junling said proudly, if you want to be in a relationship with me, you have to beat me. Ling Xingqi sighed. Forget it. You should just continue to be single. Junling was also curious. Why? Ling Xingqi said, even if your future boyfriend can beat you, I'll probably be beaten black and blue by you every day. Junling nodded solemnly. I understand, so I have to learn for boss. Finding a girlfriend is the most suitable. Ling Xingqi. Chapter 986. On Pandora's planet V12, a pillar of red light descended from above the colorful poisonous forest. Ding Meng and Ling Xingqi were teleported back to the divine aerospaceship base. Currently, silent entropy was still a top secret. The space station had a chance of capturing the signal if they were teleported directly to the Federation's borders. Thus, Ding Meng and Ling Xingqi were teleported to planet V12 while Ji Chinxua was sent to the Empire's borders. Strangely, there was no sign of the divine aerospaceship in the plaza. There was only a tattered specter ship. It was obvious that this was the blazing shark spaceship that Meng Yin was used to using. Someone quickly ran out from the terminal. It was indeed Meng Yin. Mr. Ting, you're back. Meng Yin had always been respectful to him. Furthermore, she had expected him to return sooner or later. Ding Meng was puzzled. Where are they? Meng Yin said, the princess and the others have gone to the Fertile Chalk system. Fertile Chalk system? Ding Meng was even more puzzled. How long have they been gone? Meng Yin replied, it's been 2 years. Ding Meng immediately felt a shadow pass over his heart. Why did he feel that something was not right? Are you the only one in the base? Meng Yin said, Mr. Xinjie is here too. The 6th floor of the terminal was the command hall. The structure here was the same as the command hall on the starship. The main control panel was lit up with written screens. Xinjie's hands were operating the screens on all 4 sides at the same time. All kinds of data images were being refreshed smoothly. Ding Meng could not be envious of this multitasking ability, no matter how strong he was. Only Xinjie could use it so skillfully. Xinjie was not surprised to see Ding Meng enter. He was already used to Ding Meng's long disappearances. However, Xinjie was still a little surprised to see Ling Xingqi. Isn't this Miss Ling? You're still alive. Ling Xingqi said, did you think I was dead? Xinjie stopped operating his hands and looked at Ding Meng with a smile. I'm willing to bet that Miss Ling has nothing to do with you. Ding Meng said, why do you say that? Xinjie smiled. The women you brought back before, I could tell at a glance that your relationship with them wasn't normal. But this time it's different. Your relationship is normal. Ling Xingqi said, what makes you think so? Xinjie snapped his fingers. It's simple. You look like a man. No matter how perverted Ding Meng is, he can't possibly like a man, right? Ling Xingqi almost spat out a mouthful of blood. She was just a little taller, and her looks weren't bad either. In the end, when it came to Xinjie, she became a man. Ling Xingqi rolled her eyes at Xinjie. She decided not to argue with him. Before she came, she already knew that Xinjie was Ding Ming's hardcore friend from the refugee camp. He was also a top hacker, so it was best not to provoke this guy. "Have you eaten yet?" Xinjie suddenly asked such a question. Ding Ming's eyes lit up. "Steak." Xinjie smiled and said, "All you know is steak. Can't you have a higher goal?" Ding Ming's eyes lit up even more. "There's something better?" Xinjie sighed. "Forget it. You can't stop eating once you start. Let's get down to business first. Sister Yin, please show this kid the information I've compiled." Yin had already raised a new screen on the main control console. All kinds of text and data were being refreshed rapidly. With Ding Ming's eyesight, he only needed 10 seconds to finish browsing through it. This information was actually what happened after the battle at the temple. First, the Holy Grail Federation's parliament suddenly announced that President Bai Xingfei and Vice President Liu Ting had resigned from their positions due to unwell health. The parliament, cabinet, and military jointly elected Zheng Fangying as the acting president and Liu Xiaobing as the acting vice president. Ding Ming frowned and said, "What's the background of this new president?" Xinjie said, "Zheng Fangying is an old subordinate of Bai Xingfei. He's one of the representatives of the Federation's Eagle faction. He's also a high-ranking general in the military and the commander-in-chief of the Holy Grail Federation's interstellar combined fleet." Ding Ming thought to himself that President Bai Xingfei had clearly predicted that the trip to the temple would not bode well for him, so he had prepared a backup plan beforehand. However, how could this Liu Xiaobing be the acting vice president? This time, it was Ling Xingqi who explained, "The Liu family's influence in the Federation is not to be underestimated. The Rainbow family, Rabbit family, Jade family, and the Liu family are the 4 major families in the Federation. Among them, the Liu family's influence in the political arena is the greatest. Liu Xiaobing is naturally one of their representatives." Ding Ming nodded and continued reading. The Starbao Corporation had announced that their president would be the transit string. Starbao had decided to form a comprehensive partnership with the Bingyi Corporation. At this point, the 5 major financial groups in the Federation had changed into a tripartite situation: Xinghao, Starbao, and the Bingyi Corporation. The Bingyi Corporation was still helmed by Lan Bing, but in reality, the Bingyi Corporation seemed to be vying to be the boss, because the Red Moon Corporation was clearly standing on the side of the Bingyi Corporation. As for the Norse Empire, there were almost no changes. Wen Yang was still the ruler of the empire, but there was one thing that was very strange. The war that President Bai Xingfei had predicted did not happen. The Norse Empire had announced plans to restart the war between the Fertile Chalk System and the Frogman Kingdom 3 years ago. This was a joint operation plan. The Empire had sent out 6 legions with a total of 12 interstellar fleets, while the Federation had sent out 4 legions with a total of 4 interstellar fleets. Both sides had completely driven the Frogman Kingdom's army out of the Fertile Chalk System in a short 3 months. Ding Ming narrowed his eyes. "It seems that the new president isn't simple," Xinjie said seriously. "There's a problem here. The combined fleet did not return. Both sides stayed in the depths of the Fertile Chalk System. There was no conflict and no announcement of cooperation. The strangest thing is that we can't find any traces of them." Ding Ming was surprised. "You can't find anything either?" "I can't find anything." Xinjie's answer was very straightforward. Ding Ming pondered and said, "It seems that Little Rascal and the others went for this reason." Xinjie frowned. "They've been gone for 2 years, and there's been no news from them. I can't contact them either." Ding Ming asked, "Who exactly went?" Meng Yin quickly said, "Apart from the princess and Little Rascal, there's also Su Lingyue, Elephant, and Little Arrow." Ding Ming said, "Did you find out why the combined fleet stopped?" Xinjie shook his head. "It's not easy to find out when you're not around. I can't contact the transit string on Lan Bing's side, and Miss Chu doesn't know either. Her patrol fleet wasn't sent to the Fertile Chalk System at all, and the Rainbow family doesn't know either." Ding Ming pondered and said, "I wonder what this Wen Yang is up to now." Xi and Jie nodded in agreement. I think so too. Right now, the combined fleet has completely surrounded the fertile chalk system. No one is allowed to enter or leave, not even the exploration teams and workshops. Ling Xingqi said, could it be that they want to take the energy from the temple for themselves? Ding Ming shook his head and said, if they wanted to take it for themselves, they would have done so long ago. With Wen Yang and an ugly woman's strength, the two of them could have taken it for themselves. There's no need to make such a big fuss. There must be another reason. Xi and Jie said, everyone is waiting for you to come back before making a decision. Ding Ming said, what do you think? Xi and Jie walked back to the main control panel and brought up a galactic map. According to the information you provided, the Imperial fleet hidden in the TCP-121 nebula was clearly about to start a war. I think there's only one reason for this. Wen Yang and the others have entered the underground world to get their hands on the temple's energy. Ling Xingqi immediately retorted, no matter how many fleets the Imperial fleet has, it's impossible for them to fight their way to the Holy Planet from the southernmost point of the Federation. This route is too difficult. Xin Jie nodded. My guess is that they're pretending to attack the southernmost point, using it as a threat to coerce President by Xing Fei into sharing the energy. This is Wen Yang's backup plan. In reality, the Federal Empire has no chance of starting a war. No matter which side wins, what benefits will they get? Ding Ming and Ling Xingqi both nodded. The purpose of the war was territory. Now that most of the territories have been exploited, they were mostly exiled planets or lawless areas that had no value at all. What could really attract the attention of the higher-ups of both sides were the energy sources. Ding Ming said, so far, only people have been to the periphery of the fertile chalk system's large stellar vortex, but no one has entered the core of the large stellar vortex for centuries. The combined fleet is obviously going for the core. Xi and Jie said, we'll have to figure out the specific reason. Ding Ming felt a headache coming on. According to Xi and Jie, many people were unaware of the situation. The transit string, who was most likely to know the news, could not be contacted. He really did not know who to ask. Can you contact Miss Chu? Ding Ming asked. Xi and Jie flipped through the screen. Yes, her fleet is cruising in the southern part of the Empire. The instant communication was quickly connected, but it was only a voice connection. Chu Xiaoqing's voice quickly rang out in the hall. I'm so sorry, Xi and Jie. I still don't know. Even Elder Feng doesn't know. We can't figure out the intentions of the higher-ups this time. Hearing this answer, Xi and Jie could only shrug. Ding Ming carefully observed the galactic map. Taking the direct route won't work. Xi and Jie laughed. Are you going to take the wrong path? Ding Ming said, you can think of it from another perspective. The combined fleet is very strong. They swept through the entire fertile chalk system in just a few months, and that was 3 years ago. But don't you think it's strange? The Frogman Kingdom hasn't done anything in the past few years. Xi and Jie and the other two were stunned. Yes, the Frogmen were strong. Although their technology was not as good as the Federal Empire's, their reproductive ability was extremely strong. There was no reason for them not to fight back. Looking at the galactic map, Xi and Jie immediately understood Ding Ming's thoughts. The 4 countries had always maintained a relative balance. The Frogman Kingdom in the fertile chalk system kept the Norse Empire in check, while the devouring world in Ziratul maintained a stalemate with the Holy Grail Federation. But now that the combined fleet had swept through the fertile chalk system, this balance had been broken. Ordinary people could not see this, but the Frogman King and the immortal Elemental Queen would definitely not sit by and watch. The human world had crossed the border, and they would be the unlucky ones. Ding Ming suddenly said, can you contact the commander? Contacting the commander obviously meant asking for a starship. Meng Yin could not help but ask, where do you want to go? Ding Ming said decisively, to Thousand Sails Planet. Xi and Jie and Meng Yin were both shocked. You want to go to the devouring world again? Ding Ming nodded solemnly. The immortal Elemental Queen and Lung Yin definitely know the reason. They're the most suitable. Besides, our Bingyi group has a lot of dealings with the devouring world. I'm going this time to return the favor to the immortal elemental queen. Chapter 987. Ding Ming had considered borrowing a ship from the surprise attack army. Planet V12 was the closest to Flying Star City. If Flying Star City turned to Planet Luji, it would be the territory of the Extreme Pirate Corps. The pirate leader was still Tian Howling. It would be easy to let them pass. If they flew north of Planet Luji, they would arrive at Thousand Sails Planet. Under normal circumstances, the two sides at the border would not make things difficult for the mercenary spaceships, but it was not necessarily the case for the patrol fleet and the group starships. At that moment, in the depths of the vast space, a medium-sized carrier spitting out ice-blue origin flames was speeding through the darkness. The command hall was filled with people. They were all the mercenaries of the surprise attack army, and they were all the elites of the commander. In any case, every time Ding Ming gave orders, the commander not only obeyed, but also made a big scene. There was no other reason. He wanted to curry favor with Ding Ming as much as possible. Whether the surprise attack army was doing well in outer space no longer depended on the mood of the space station. Instead, it depended on the mood of the Bingy group. A large number of raw materials from the Devouring Realm were transported to Planet Luji by the surprise attack army and the Green Arrow family. In the end, they were transported back to the border of the Azure system and received by Ding Wenhe or Long Feiyu of the Bingy group. If Boss Lan Bing was unhappy, then everyone could go and drink. Of course, the general also knew that Bing Yi's Boss Lan Bing was not only their breadwinner, but she was also Brother Ding's woman. Usually, everyone would have some thoughts and jokes about it. Now that Brother Ding was standing beside the starship's control panel, no one dared to think about it. They did not even dare to open their mouths. Why are you trembling for no reason? Ding Ming noticed that the commander's legs were trembling. The commander smiled awkwardly. Brother Ding, I'm just excited. We're about to meet the people from the Devouring Realm. Ding Ming pointed at him and scolded him with a smile. You're getting more and more glib. You usually deliver goods for the Bingy group. Don't you have enough dealings with the Devouring Realm? Isn't that all thanks to your grace, old man? The commander quickly flattered him. But those Devouring Realm monsters are usually small soldiers. When have we ever met a big shot? Ding Ming said, Did you inform the other party? The marshal hurriedly explained, I did. I sent the message in your name. He lowered his head and explained while roaring to the side. Damn it. Go and check again to confirm the time. The mercenary next to him didn't dare to say anything. He turned around and trotted toward the scouting area. He felt a wave of anger in his heart. Damn it. You're usually as fierce as a tiger. Why are you so scared when you meet Boss Lan Bing's man? However, on second thought, a man who could be a fairy like Boss Lan Bing must be a powerful figure. They're here. Cries of surprise rang out from the scouting area. The hologram on the main control panel changed. The reconnaissance image showed that there was a huge blue-black shadow in the dark night sky, quietly approaching. It was at least 5 times the size of the carrier's ship. F***CK. It's the legendary Void Spirit Ray. These mercenaries had never seen such a mythological beast in their entire lives. One by one, they began to make a big fuss. Their voices were filled with surprise and fear. The Void Spirit Ray could swallow 3 of the old transport ships, like the surprise assault army, without a problem. You bastards have never seen the world. The commander waved his hand impatiently. Hurry up and establish a connection. No need. Ding Ming stopped him. Open the connecting cabin. I'll go directly. The commander was immediately amused. Boss, this is space. Can you go directly? Ding Ming was also impatient. Just open it. Why are you talking so much nonsense? So, under everyone's gaze, Ding Ming flew nimbly in the vacuum like a light bird. He slowly approached the Void Spirit Ray, gradually merged with it, and finally disappeared into the darkness. F***CK. It's the first time I've seen someone fly directly in space. Awesome. No wonder he's the boss of bosses. He's so cool. The point is that the Void Spirit Ray didn't attack him. Boss, can I ask you something? Is that Shorty really Boss Lan Bing's man? The commander slapped him. Who's short? You're the short one. Your whole family is short. When you see him in the future, you have to call him Master Ding. Do you understand? If you keep spouting nonsense, if you ruin the business of the army, I will castrate you and burn your chrysanthemum. Inside the void spirit ray, in the furnace space where the heart was, a strange face appeared out of thin air, but his tone was very friendly. Long time no see, Ding Ming. Ding Ming was standing at the top. He was a little surprised. So it's Senior 7 Kills. Indeed, it's been a long time. 7 Kills said, I heard that you were coming, so the sect master sent me to pick you up personally. His tone was filled with respect. It was Ding Ming who had healed his soul source in the past. Ding Ming said, Where's the sect master? 7 Kills said, She's waiting for you in the room. I won't go over. Ding Ming nodded and turned to walk outside. 7 Kills had recovered quickly over the years. The poisonous mucus inside the void spirit ray was very thick, and the passage between the bones was also full of poisonous gas. Ding Ming had already walked into the passage. All kinds of monsters in the fog and poisonous liquid appeared and took the initiative to retreat to the side to show their respect. The devouring world was very strict with the orders of their sect master. Since this human was the sect master's guest, they had to maintain a high standard of etiquette. They had to show up and make way. The room was still the same dry room from before. It was decorated with green plants and a giant lotus leaf. Lung Yin was indeed in the room. She was still wearing the poisonous leaf ancient costume with a black crown on her head. The 6 wings on her back had turned from dark blue to sky blue and had a faint luster. You've improved a lot. You're qualified to be a queen. Ding Ming took the initiative to greet her. Lung Yin's attitude was very friendly. She even laughed, but her laughter was still very annoying. Ding Ming, you really know how to pick a time to contact me. Ding Ming said, What's wrong? You don't welcome me now that you're going to be a queen? Lung Yin said, What are you talking about? Let's not talk about anything else. I'll introduce an old friend to you. Ding Ming then realized that there was another person in the room. It was an old man. His appearance was not very different from Lung Yin's. He was also wearing the poisonous leaf ancient costume, but his aura was weaker. He should be an elder. The old man smiled. Ding Ming, we finally meet again. This voice was very familiar. Ding Ming blurted out, Shuiyu Mountain's Senior Shui? Shuiyu Mountain bowed his head respectfully. I don't dare. The strong are respected. Ding Ming, you're now worthy of being called a senior. Ding Ming smiled. Congratulations, elder. Congratulations on reforging your immortal aperture. Shuiyu Mountain smiled. It's all thanks to you. Ding Ming asked again, What about Senior Fusionjun? Lung Yin said, His essence soul is still in the flame star sacred lake. I believe that he'll be able to reforge his human body soon. Ding Ming was in a good mood. His efforts back then had finally paid off. Fusionjun and Shuiyu Mountain were finally saved. Lung Yin said, Ding Ming, why did you suddenly contact me? Ding Ming had no choice but to explain the purpose of his visit. For a moment, Lung Yin and Shuiyu Shan both revealed bitter smiles. Lung Yin sighed. It's a long story. We're also here for this matter. 3 years ago, the Federal Empire sent out a total of 16 interstellar fleets. 6 of them were super fleets. This combined fleet's attack was too sudden. The Frogman army in the Fertile Chalk system didn't even have time to react before they were forced to retreat. Such a large-scale military operation is very rare in the history of war. Even the Lord was alerted. Ding Ming nodded. From a strategic point of view, the Federation was like the Frogman nation to the devouring world. Both sides were interdependent. The Frogman army being forced to retreat meant that the pressure on the devouring world was greatly increased. Lung Yin continued, Sir, you've actually been in contact with the Frogmen. The Frogman army's commander told us that it was a normal military operation. However, the strange thing is that the Frogman nation didn't retaliate in the following year. According to our investigation, it's not that the Frogmen didn't retaliate. It's just that they didn't do a large-scale military operation. Instead, they only sent small units to infiltrate. Ding Ming suspiciously asked, The fertile chalk system has been sealed off. A large army can't enter. So how can a small unit infiltrate? Lung In said, don't underestimate the Frogman Nation. They also have a considerable number of experts, and they aren't any weaker than origin ability users. Those warriors have been modified dozens of times and have hundreds of years of experience on the battlefield. Ding Ming asked, what's the result? Lung In said, as far as we know, the commander sent out more than 10 small units, but there's been no news of them for the past 3 years. Ding Ming understood. Either they mysteriously disappeared or they were wiped out. Lung In shook her head and said, there is no evidence that they were killed by origin ability users. However, the commander-in-chief's attitude is very strange. Every time he gives you an ambiguous answer, my lord. This has made my lord very dissatisfied. Ding Ming pondered and said, there must be a reason behind this. Lung In said, a month ago, the commander of the Frogmen sent an invitation to our devouring world and the Steel Mane Nation in the name of the Mother Frogman. He requested that our queen and the steward of the Steel Mane Nation personally come to the Frogman Nation to discuss how to deal with the combined fleet. Oh, Ding Ming's expression changed. He had heard too many rumors about the Mother Frogman. It could be said that the Mother Frogman was the most mysterious existence in the Saint Brilliant system. Its level of mystery was not inferior to organizations like the Black Hand, Blue Lotus, Gauss, and the Hidden Front. Was this Mother Frogman or ghost? Was it a frog or a spirit? What form did it take? What was its name? Where was it hiding? The outside world knew nothing about this. The only thing they knew was that the Mother Frogman was the supreme existence of the Frogmen. All the commanders of the armies were under its command. The Norse Empire and the Frogmen had been fighting for hundreds of years. No one in the Empire knew what the Mother Frogman looked like. Even the captured Frogmen had never seen the Mother Frogman before. It was extremely mysterious. Now that the commander of the armies had sent an invitation in the name of the Mother Frogman, it could not be fake. This matter would definitely be blown out of proportion. Ding Ming said, what did Senior Enchantress say? Lung In let out a long sigh. Her Majesty is in a critical period of cultivating the heavenly book physique. She has no time to go. She ordered me to represent her as the emissary of the devouring world. As for who the representative from the Steel Mane Nation is, I don't know. Ding Ming secretly laughed. Dark Knight Enchantress was not a fool. She was the overlord of the devouring world. Why would she go just because she was told to? Being at a disadvantage was a small matter. What if this was a trap? Chapter 988. Going to the Frogman Kingdom as an emissary of the immortal Yuan King was obviously not a good thing. If things went wrong, he might even be killed. Lung In had obviously thought of this as well, and she had a worried expression on her face. Ding Ming said, opposing the combined fleet, this is a big issue. Shuiyu Mountain spoke up, yes. Although our common enemy is the human origin ability users, we haven't cooperated for hundreds of years. 100 years ago, the Frogmen secretly attacked our devouring realm. I also think that Sect Master's worries are correct. What if they turn around and attack us instead? Ding Ming said, they won't go so far as to attack you. I'm guessing that the Frogman Kingdom is currently facing internal and external problems. He only invited you because he has a request. If he really had the strength, why would he need to invite Senior Beauty G? Lung In said, that's true, but I'm not the Lord himself. It wouldn't make sense for me to go there with just a few people. Ding Ming said decisively, take me with you. I'll go with you. Lung In hesitated. Is this appropriate? Ding Ming said, what's inappropriate about it? Don't forget that the real immortal Yuan King treated me as an honored guest when she was alive. This time, you're going with the Queen's name, not Senior Beauty G. He dared to make such a request because the Bingy group could still purchase goods from the Flame Star in the Devouring Realm. He had thought about this before. It was impossible for the Dark Knight Demoness to not know about this. She must have tacitly agreed to it. In reality, she didn't treat Ding Ming as an enemy. In the eyes of the upper echelons of the various countries, Ding Ming was just a pure and detached force. He didn't represent the Federation or the Empire. Shuiyu Mountain said, "Sect Master, I think this is feasible. Ding Ming was a good friend of the Queen when she was alive. It's very appropriate for him to speak on behalf of his friend." Ding Ming gave her a thumbs up. It was really worth it for him to bring her spirit back to the devouring realm. She had spoken up for him at such a crucial moment. Lung Yi nodded. "All right then. With you accompanying us to Ding Ming, our safety will undoubtedly be guaranteed." Ding Ming's eyelids drooped. "If I really run into a master, I can run away much faster than you." Ha ha ha. The three of them couldn't help but burst into laughter. Sometimes, dealing with people from the Devourer world was more pleasant than dealing with humans. Wen Yang, Transit String, and the others were too scheming and shrewd, so they couldn't be trusted completely. However, Lung Yin, Shuiyu Mountain, and the others were much simpler in this regard. Once they recognized a friend, they were a friend. They wouldn't play games with you. Lung Yin said, "Their frontline army's commander-in-chief has designated the landing point to be at the Zheng Feng space station in the periphery of the Chalk Star system. He said that someone will come and pick you up. Senior 7 Kill's power has increased greatly. If you fly through the wormhole, you'll arrive in 5 days at the earliest and 25 days at the latest." Ding Ming said, "Don't be like last time. Last time, Eisenel ate some magic apple by mistake and made such a big mistake." Lung Yin giggled. "Then do you want to find a woman to accompany you on the way?" Ding Ming was curious. "Can you find a woman in outer space?" Lung Yin said, "I can't get a human beauty, but the beauties from the Devourer world aren't bad either. Do you want to call a few in for you to choose?" Ding Ming quickly waved his hand. "Please don't. Just get me some magic fruit to eat. I need to replenish my strength and catch up with the elders." Lung Yin said, "All right then." Ding Ming didn't come to Shuiyu Mountain to chat. Although Shuiyu Mountain wasn't strong, she was very knowledgeable and was quite familiar with the Frogmen. The Frogmen occupied 3 outer space systems with the Pan-God Galaxy as the main one. They were quite large. The Pan-God Galaxy was only 5 light years away from the Norse Empire. This distance was already very close. If it wasn't for the long Chalk Star system in the middle, the battle between the two sides would have started on their respective borders. Because the two countries had been at war for hundreds of years, the Frogmen shifted their focus to the Chalk Star system for safety reasons. The capital of the Frogmen Kingdom, St. Dragon Star City, was located on Heavenly Silkworm Star in the Chalk Star system. A total of 7 armies of the Frogmen were stationed there. The Frogmen were divided into civilians, soldiers, generals, warlords, generals, commanders, and army commanders. Each army had a total of 5 million soldiers. Although the number of Frogmen fighting in the Devourer world was also overwhelming, it should be known that those below the level of Demon General were low-level creatures that were hatched. Unlike the soldiers of the Frogmen Kingdom, who had died many times and been modified many times, the 5 million soldiers were battle-hardened and fearless. They were highly disciplined and had strong execution abilities. To be honest, if the Federal Empire didn't have the steel torrent of starships and various advanced technological systems, they wouldn't be a match for the Frogmen at all. The Frogmen's reproduction speed was extremely fast, and they specialized in machinery and biotechnology. They especially cherished resources and used all kinds of resources rationally. Their social consciousness was highly centralized and unified. Compared to the Steel Main Empire and the Devourer world, this was a very terrifying interstellar race. During the Starlight exam, Liang Iran had commented that humans always thought that they were the superior creatures, but in fact, the aliens were superior to humans in many aspects. Their reproduction ability was super strong, and most of them had no sense of self, no fear, and no knowledge of death. From the perspective of the law of the jungle, this was the perfect social system. In fact, they were very likely to have evolved for millions of years and were very advanced creatures. Now, Shuiyu Mountain's point of view was basically the same as Liang Iran's. Ding Ming also nodded to himself. This trip to the Frogmen Kingdom was not as easy as he had imagined. Of course, he only had 2 goals. One was to find out the whereabouts of the divine aerospace ship, and the other was to find out what the combined fleet was up to. 5 days later, the Zhengfeng space station appeared in Dingmeng's field of vision. At first glance, this space station gave people the impression that it was a meteorite floating in space. It was not until the void spirit ray flew closer that they realized that it was not a meteorite, but a huge gray fortress. It looked like an agave plant, and its leaves were arranged in a row like a murderous stone mountain. Countless frogman spaceships took off and landed on the large stone leaves from all directions. Its scale was not inferior to the Skynet space station above Blue Pole Star City. It was simply an armed monster. Dingmeng was also secretly amazed. The Zhengfeng space station's material was likely a composite of rare metals. It had the ability to withstand attacks. According to the instructions of the Frogman Kingdom, the Void Spirit Ray landed inside the space station, and there was a Netherworld Frogman mothership waiting in space. This was a huge starship. It was a spherical object with a green metal surface. When the Void Spirit Ray flew closer, a straight crack appeared in the center of the sphere, and the helipad made of steel and machinery could be seen with the naked eye. Shuiyu Mountain explained, "This Netherworld Frogman's mothership has amazing defensive capabilities. When it is closed, neither the humans' orbital bombardment nor our acid bombs can blast it open. Only a large army would be equipped with a mothership like this." What he meant was that the Frogman Kingdom was sincere enough to send out a mothership to welcome their guests. On the helipad, dozens of tall Frogman soldiers were neatly arranged in 2 rows. Every soldier was fully armed. Their huge bodies were fitted with all kinds of metal plates, coil components, and battle suits. They were all over 5 meters tall, and their eyes were as thick as footballs. Their eyes were cold and blue, and their expressions were serious and cold. One look, and one could tell that they were well-trained troops who had been through hundreds of battles. Even if these soldiers were standing still, they had a fierce, murderous aura that made people tremble. This was something that human soldiers didn't have. Dingmeng finally understood why the Norse Empire and the Frogman Kingdom had been fighting for hundreds of years without a clear winner. When fighting against such a powerful army, you really couldn't gain the upper hand. At the front of the group, there was a short frogman general who was waiting with his head raised. Dingmeng also knew that the larger the frogmen, the more powerful they were. On the contrary, the shorter they were, the more powerful they were. This was because their bodies had been constantly weakened during the long battles. At the same time, they had also learned the cultivation methods of their own race and human origin ability users, and their strength had increased even further. For example, the general in front of him was only 9 meters tall, but his eyes were glowing with a purple light. There were so many different kinds of alloy pieces embedded in his body that it made people's scalps tingle. If it weren't for his bald head and thick legs, you would think that he was a human-shaped robot. However, it was precisely because there were so many modified alloys that this person had to be a general with outstanding military achievements. Sure enough, the general strode forward and spoke a long string of Frogman language. Fortunately, Dingmeng also understood the language of the Frogman Kingdom, so he roughly understood what the general was saying. "Welcome, Immortal Element King. I am General Mo Donluan, who is responsible for receiving the distinguished guests of the Devouring Realm. I am responsible for escorting you safely to St. Dragonstar City." Lung Yin replied, "Then I'll have to trouble you, General." However, Mo Donluan couldn't help but glance at Dingmeng. He explained in a cold voice, "This Mr. Dingmeng is a close friend of my master. He has a close relationship with the Devouring Realm's Immortal Gate. He has been entrusted by my master to come here to discuss the grand plan. If you are worried, General, you can check. He is not affiliated with any high-ranking personnel of the Federal Empire." Mo Donluan's eyes glowed purple again. Then, he waved his hand and turned around. His meaning was clear. He allowed Dingmeng to pass. Dingmeng, on the other hand, sneered inwardly. This frog general was too arrogant. He thought that no one would be able to detect his scan, but in reality, Dingmeng had already seen through him. He was just a high-level combat monarch. However, when a battle monarch scanned Dingmeng's current strength, there was only one conclusion. He was just an ordinary person. There was nothing to worry about. Then, the two halves of the Nethersphere mothership began to close. The ion engine below the mothership spewed out a huge crystal flame, and the entire ship began to move toward the chalk star system. Chapter 989. The Zhengfeng space station was still some distance away from the chalk star system. During the flight, Ding Meng and the other two were arranged to wait in the waiting area next to the connecting module. This made Lung Yin very angry. Logically speaking, they were guests invited by the Frogman Kingdom and did not request to be brought to the command center. However, they should have at least been arranged to rest in a special area. The Frogman Kingdom was undoubtedly giving them the cold shoulder and not taking them seriously. Shuiyu Mountain sighed and explained, the Devouring World's power is too weak compared to the Frogman Kingdom, so it's normal for them to be looked down upon. Even a small country like the Steelmane Kingdom has to pay tribute to the Frogman Kingdom every year. Ding Meng nodded. He knew about this. The Steelmane Kingdom had a hand over valuable rare metals to the Frogman Kingdom every year. This was a very painful thing to do. At the very least, the Frogman Kingdom would not dare to do this to the Devouring World. As they spoke, the mothership entered the chalk star system. This system was actually similar to the Byron system. It was the kind of system that looked vast but did not have many resources. 52 planets revolve around a huge sun in the center. Most of the planets did not even enjoy sunlight. Planet Heavenly Silkworm was slightly closer to the center. The entire planet's terrain was barren, rocky, and gray. There are not even many rivers, and there was no ocean at all. Ding Meng thought that it was not unreasonable for the Frogman Kingdom to cherish the use of energy. To occupy such a barren planet, every grain had to be carefully calculated, and it was unrealistic for them to not send out fleets to search for energy. Holy Dragon City soon appeared in front of them. Even though Ding Meng had heard many galactic travelers describe the cities of the Frogman Kingdom, he was still shocked by the sight of the Frogman Kingdom's capital. The scale of this city far exceeded that of the imperial and holy planets. It almost covered the entire land. If one were to describe it accurately, it was shaped like a pyramid. The top of the pyramid was exposed on the ground, and most of the pyramid was buried underground. The buildings on the surface were completely different from those on the human world. Every building, regardless of size, was designed with their totem symbol, the frog. Looking down from above, it looked like countless colorful steel eggs of various sizes were stacked together. All the buildings were a mixture of metal and biological fibers. Those who did not know would mistakenly think that they had entered the lair of a mysterious alien beast. If the scale of the surface world was already so large, it was hard to imagine the scale of the underground world. Of course, Ding Meng had heard of this before. At the bottom of every city of the frog tribe lived primitive frogs. There was only one thing they had to do, and that was to constantly lay eggs, breed, and hatch. They would become frog tribe civilians, and then through layers of selection and countless trials, they would finally become warriors. Every level had a strict division of labor. Replenishment of supplies, medical treatment, restoration, martial arts training, selection, combat training, actual combat simulation, modification, research and development. Level by level, it increased until they reached the ground level. Only then would they be considered true elites of the Frog Clan. The difficulty of a toddler from birth to a member of the ground forces was no less than climbing from hell to the human world. Rather than calling the Black Frog Clan a nation, it was more like a petri dish for a huge war machine. None of the members were useless, and none of the resources were wasted. Looking at the huge capital that was as dense as insect eggs, Ding Meng felt his scalp tingle. The mothership did not land. Instead, it sent out a transport ship to send Ding Meng and the other three to the army headquarters on the outskirts of the city. This place seemed to have a hint of life, because the headquarters was a high-end imitation of the human world. It was like a group of mansions. In the center of the group of mansions was a palace. Ding Meng felt that this palace looked familiar, because it reminded him of the palace at the top of the Green Tree tribe. Could the two be related? Outside the palace was a spacious square. The square was also surrounded by fully armed Frog tribe soldiers. Tables and chairs were already set up in the north area, and there were many people sitting there. The first was a skinny Frog tribe general lying on a large steel chair in the north. Like Emo, Donloin, his entire body was made of metal, and only his two eyeballs were constantly changing colors. This was the Frogman tribe's army commander, Leighton. Dingming had heard about this famous person from Chu Shaoqi. This person was very talented in military matters, and his commanding ability was especially outstanding. He was a Frog tribe general that the Empire hated the most on the front lines. He took over the front lines of the fertile Chalk Galaxy and led the Frogmen to contend with the Norse Empire's fleets for more than 60 years. Dingming glanced around. Commander Leighton's aura showed signs of breaking through to the warlord level. He really was something. Behind Leighton stood a group of Frog tribe generals. Each of them had an imposing and tough appearance. Other than Leighton, there were also people sitting at the other tables and chairs. What surprised Dingming the most was that there was a group of humans next to Leighton. There were a total of 6 people, and the leader was an old man. This person had a gloomy face and a white beard. Only his eyes shone brightly. The aura on his body was already at the warlord level. Dingming wondered why he hadn't seen this person in the Federal Empire before. He was secretly observing the other party, and the other party was also observing him. Of course, the other party wouldn't be able to find any clues. Below the white-bearded old man was a group of familiar people. This group of people was the royal family of the Steel Main Empire. They were led by Jun Tian, and the others were Shilang, Poseidon, Enai, Zhang, Zhan Tian, Zhan Feng. The upper echelons of the royal family were basically all present. As soon as he saw Dingming, Jun Tian immediately stood up and took the initiative to greet him. "Master Ding, it's great to see you here. Long time no see." Dingming responded calmly. As soon as they heard the name Master Ding, the white-bearded old man and the others immediately whispered to each other. Obviously, they were trying to guess Dingming's identity. Dingming's identity wasn't well known in the Frogman Kingdom, but among the masters in the human world, everyone knew who he was. The white-bearded old man actually took the initiative to stand up and walk over. "Mr. Ting, you're very famous. I didn't expect to meet you here." Dingming frowned and said, "You haven't asked?" The white-bearded old man said, "I'm Zhongyu. I'm just an outer space traveler. I'm very grateful that Commander Leighton of the Frogman Kingdom invited me here. Now that I've met Mr. Dingming, I'm very fortunate." His words were polite, but how could Dingming look down on him? This Zhongyu wasn't bad himself, and the men and women behind him weren't bad either. He claimed to be an intergalactic traveler. What kind of powerful intergalactic traveler could attract the attention of the Frogman Kingdom's military? At this moment, Leighton coughed softly. "Welcome, Master Xian Yuan's envoy. Sect Leader Lung Yin, is everyone here now?" As soon as he spoke, everyone immediately returned to their seats. Lung Yin also sat down in the seat that was prepared in advance, right next to Leighton's right. Leighton said that he was going to welcome Lung Yin, but in the end, he didn't even lift his butt. He was still lying down on the long metal chair. His arrogant attitude was obvious. Lung Yin also frowned slightly. She realized that the long table in front of the 3 families was empty. There weren't even any snacks or drinks. Although the living habits of the Frogman Kingdom and the Frogman Kingdom were different, they should at least treat their guests well. This was really depressing. However, this couldn't be helped. The Frogman Kingdom's fist was the biggest, and the one with the biggest fist was the one with the most power. Leighton didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the point. "Everyone, I believe that you have all seen it. After the Frogman Kingdom withdrew from the front lines, the combined fleet has completely sealed off the fertile chalk system. This has seriously affected the situation of the Frogman Kingdom and harmed everyone's interests. Today, I invited everyone to the Holy Dragon City to discuss how to reverse the current situation and restore everyone's interests." Although he was a frogman, he had a clear mind and was very eloquent. In just a few words, he settled the topic. Zhong Yu was the first to speak. Commander Layton, I'm just a small peddler. To put it bluntly, I'm just making a little money in the fertile chalk system. When the combined fleet wasn't around, I could still make a living. Now that the combined fleet is sealed off, I can still make a living. Commander, you want to turn the situation around? Aren't you overestimating me by inviting me here? Layton suddenly sat up straight, and his expression softened. Elder Zhong, you must be joking. Although we have a large-scale battle with the Empire and the fertile chalk system, everyone knows that the development of new territories can't be done without the support of people like you. This is because the vanguard often doesn't move as fast as your exploration teams. Ding Ming could see that Layton still respected Zhong Yu very much. He guessed that this group of people had a strong background. Zhong Yu smiled bitterly. Commander, you're too kind. Now that the Steel Mane royal family and the Devourer emissary are both here, I know my place. I hope that the two of you can give me some pointers. This was throwing the ball to the other two families. Layton glanced at Jun Tian and asked, What do you think, sir? Jun Tian was obviously not confident. He hesitated and said, Commander, if your army wants to fight back at the front lines, the Steel Mane Nation will support you as always. We're willing to provide 20% more rare metal materials on top of the original amount. He thought that his answer was flawless, but who knew that a young general behind Layton snorted coldly. Look at the Steel Mane Nation. You have no guts and no sincerity. How can providing some materials be considered support? Can't you spare a part of your Royal Guard regiment? Jun Tian did not say anything. The Steel Mane Nation was used to being bullied by the frogmen. Even if an ordinary general beside Layton reprimanded him, he would not dare to say anything. Layton turned his head and said, Sect Master Lung Yin, what do you think? Lung Yin was about to answer when Ding Ming suddenly said, Hello, Commander. I have a question to ask. The young general spoke out coldly. Who are you? How dare you speak to the commander like this? Ding Ming smiled. Are you the commander? The young general was stunned. Of course I'm not. Ding Ming smiled. I'm asking the commander, not anyone else. Since you're not the commander, please shut up. The crowd was in an uproar. This friend of Xian Yuan's was too arrogant. How dare he speak like this in the headquarters of the army? The young general sneered. Think something Ming, right? Do you know where this place is? Ding Ming glanced at him. Look at you. You don't seem convinced, do you? Chapter 990. Ding Ming's gaze made the young general feel a little guilty. They were all people who had fought on the battlefield. When he saw Ding Ming's deep and cold gaze, the young general knew that he was not as simple as he looked. The Frogman Kingdom was similar to the Norse Empire in this aspect. They worshipped the strong and respected martial arts. Only those with powerful fists had the right to speak. The young general looked like he was about to walk out of the formation, but Ladon reached out and stopped him. Mr. Ting, what's the problem? Ladon looked at Ding Ming with interest. He was the commander of the army after all. His eyes were sharper than the average person. There must be a reason why he had plundered the celestial elemental energy of the devouring world and then invited a human to be his follower. Ding Ming said, The invitation that the celestial elemental queen received was sent by the commander in the name of your country's mother. Leiden's eyes kept changing colors. What's the problem? Ding Ming said, The mother did not even come out to say anything. What's the use of us discussing it? Ladon smiled. The frogman smile had a special characteristic. They opened their bloody mouth so wide that it felt like they were going to swallow you whole. Then let me ask you. The mother invited the celestial elemental queen. Did the queen come? Ladon asked. Ding Ming said, At least the celestial elemental queen sent a messenger over. Ladon said, Since Master Lung can represent the queen, I can also represent the mother. Ding Ming said, Well, since the commander is so confident, we are not afraid to speak openly. Ladon nodded. I'm all ears. Ding Ming said, I don't think there's any need to discuss the matter of attacking the combined fleet. The crowd was in an uproar again. What was that supposed to mean? Ding Ming stared at Layton and said, Because the commander himself knows that the combined fleet can't defeat the enemy in a direct confrontation. The key lies in the word combined. The combined fleet was an alliance of the Federal Empire. No matter how fearless and brave the frogs were, there was no way they could fight against the power of two countries. If they could, they would have launched a counterattack 3 years ago. From a strategic point of view, counterattacking was definitely not the best strategy. You wouldn't be able to shake them either. After all, they were an interstellar fleet with a very high level of technology. Lei Dun said, "That makes sense." Ding Ming continued, "As far as I know, the commander's small troops are constantly infiltrating the defense line. Unfortunately, no one has returned alive, and there is no news. I'm afraid that most of the powerful frogs are dead." Lei Dun said indifferently, "It's not a secret." Ding Ming said, "Commander, do you want to know why?" Lei Dun's expression finally became serious. "Please tell me." Ding Ming said, "Over the past few years, the upper echelons of the Empire have obtained a new batch of energy, and the strength of the top fighters has increased by a lot. That's why the Empire dared to send a large number of troops to the Fertile Chalk system. When Yang predicted that you would send a small number of elite troops to infiltrate, and the result would be that none of them returned." Lei Dun finally showed a hint of surprise, and the generals behind him also started to discuss. Ding Ming said, "Commander, you don't have any cards to play now, right? That's why you thought of asking for help from other countries. Unfortunately, the Steel Main Empire is too small to provide any substantial help." Jun Tian's face instantly turned red. They had suffered in the hands of Ding Ming before, and they also knew that Ding Ming was telling the truth. Ding Ming's eyes fell on Zhongyu. "Mr. Zhong, I'm sure you don't want to have a direct confrontation with the Federal Empire, right? We're all people who survive in outer space. Which country's upper echelons would dare to offend us?" Zhongyu showed an apologetic expression. "I'm ashamed of myself." Lei Dun stared at Ding Ming. Then, "I wonder what Sir Immortal Yuan King thinks of the current situation?" Ding Ming said leisurely, "I have many opinions, but I don't have a single solution." These words infuriated the group of frog generals. What was the meaning of this? Do you want to stand by and do nothing? Or do you want to watch the fire burn across the river? The young general could not help but say, "Ding, our frogman kingdom is close to your devouring world. You should know that we're enemies. Our front lines have retreated, and the pressure you face from the Federation will increase." Ding Ming replied nonchalantly, "I know, but I also know that the Holy Grail Federation will not attack our devouring world." The young general said, "What makes you think so?" Ding Ming smiled. "This is not 100 years ago. What is there for the Federation to covet in our devouring world's territory? By the same logic, our devouring realm will not send troops to Thousand Sail Star. There's nothing valuable left in the musical quarter. You can't possibly think that we'll turn around and attack that godforsaken Cypress Star, right?" The frogmen generals were speechless. Ding Ming's attitude was arrogant, but what he said was right. Lung Yin and Shui Yueshan nodded their heads inwardly. Don't look at how Ding Ming was usually so arrogant. His judgment of the situation was extremely accurate. Lei Dun smiled again. "Okay, let's not talk about solutions. I want to ask the Queen's opinion." "Of course I have an opinion," Ding Ming said casually. Lei Dun said, "For example?" Ding Ming smiled slyly. "For example, you're not sincere?" Lei Dun asked in return. "We're not sincere?" Ding Ming smiled. "We came all the way here, but the commander didn't even prepare a cup of tea. Is the Frogman Kingdom that poor? Or are they that stingy?" Lei Dun smiled and turned his head. "Men, prepare a gift for our esteemed guest." The frogman's so-called gift was equivalent to the human world's treat. It was the most basic form of hospitality. Soon, the soldiers placed plates of fruits, snacks, and drinks on Lung Yin's table. Although they didn't look like much, the Frogman Kingdom's ability to produce these things was not inferior to the Federation's high-quality fiber. Ding Ming looked at them, then picked up a fresh yellow peach and stuffed it into his mouth. His expression of enjoyment made the frogman generals glare at him angrily. "What the F***CK? We can't bear to eat these good things, but you're taking advantage of us." Lei Dun said again, "Mr. Ting, You can't say that we're not sincere now, right? Ding Ming said, sincerity is there, but sincerity alone is far from enough. If the commander wants to gain the support of the immortal element king, just talking is not enough. Then what do we rely on? Our fists? The young general was furious, but he couldn't take it anymore. He slowly walked out of the formation with his big alloy belly and stood in the middle of the square. I think you're just talking nonsense. We frogmen believe in the saying that fists are the truth. If you have the guts, come out and teach me a few moves. I'll only believe your nonsense if you do. Huh? Ding Ming was amused. You want to teach me a lesson with your iron belly? You're still too young. The young general was furious. Cut the crap. I've been dealing with you hairless monkeys in the fertile Chalkstar system for more than 40 years. Young people like you, I can easily kill a bunch of them. Ding Ming slowly walked into the square with his hands behind his back. You're still far from it. Really, I don't even want to fight. Even if I kill you, I won't feel any sense of accomplishment. At this time, the atmosphere around them had become tense. The key was that Lei Dun didn't say anything to stop him. He also wanted to let the young general test Ding Ming's strength. After all, the emissary sent by the devouring realm was a human. He wanted to see what he was made of. Everyone could talk big, but not everyone had the ability to do so. Hearing Ding Ming's arrogant reply, the young general rushed over without saying anything. He was 3 meters tall, and his belly was like a steel ball. When he charged, he looked like a giant steel ball smashing down, causing the ground to tremble. This was a typical charge of the frog race. His valiant aura, coupled with his sharp eyes, was enough to strike fear into the hearts of the other races' armies if hundreds or thousands of them charged together on the battlefield. Bang! The air shook and twisted. Before the fist arrived, the wind created by the fist was already powerful. The young general's iron fist was as big as Ding Ming's body. When this heavy fist came crashing down, no one could think of how to dodge it. However, Ding Ming didn't dodge at all and allowed the fist to hit his head. The young general thought that Ding Ming would be turned into a meat patty on the spot. Unexpectedly, his fist seemed to have hit a nail. First, he felt a piercing pain on his palm, then a burning sensation. When he looked down, he saw that Ding Ming was unharmed. Shocked, the young general quickly retreated. What kind of sorcery is this? It wasn't his fault that he couldn't figure out what was going on. You, a beginner battle saint, couldn't even sense your opponent's aura. Ding Ming's eyelids drooped. That's it. The young general glared at him and suddenly stretched out his right hand. Give me my sword. In the distance, soldiers immediately threw out a colorful giant sword. From the color, it was obvious that it was made of many rare metals. Ding Ming laughed again. Your sword is so colorful. It's for women, right? The young general was too lazy to be long-winded. After receiving the sword, he activated his origin energy. At the same time, the alloy fragments on his body emitted an extremely sharp energy field. The sword was wrapped in many arcs of electricity. It seemed that the reborn warriors were quite powerful. Whoa! The young general let out a clear howl as he once again leapt into the air and chopped down with his saber. The saber was like a bolt of lightning as it slashed towards Ding Ming's head. This saber strike was extremely ferocious. At the very least, it could shake a war god level expert. It was a sharp chi sound. It sounded like the blade cutting through flesh. However, what broke was not Ding Ming's head, but the sword itself. The sword had clearly hit Ding Ming's head, but in the end, the sword turned into a pool of molten steel. In an instant, it turned into white smoke and vaporized. This time, everyone was dumbfounded. Even the weakest person could tell that Ding Ming had used an extremely powerful energy to melt the sword. This representative of the devouring realm was actually an unfathomable expert. The young general was still in a daze. Ding Ming had already straightened his nose and opened his nostrils. He directly exhaled a weak stream of air. It was this small stream of air that caused him to slide backward. A long scratch appeared on the steel, plate-paved plaza. The young general barely managed to stand in front of Lei Dun. He was about to step forward again, but Lei Dun shouted at him to stop. Back down! The young general looked a little unwilling, but he still walked to the back obediently. The generals behind him were all filled with righteous indignation. Lei Dun said coldly, "Don't be rude to our esteemed guest. He has already shown you mercy. Otherwise, you would have turned into ashes." Chapter 991. Everyone was shocked by Ding Ming's snorting through his nostrils, especially the generals of the Frog Clan. They all lowered their heads and didn't say a word. Lei Dun looked at Ding Ming meaningfully, then slowly stood up. "Let's end the discussion here. Our esteemed guests have just arrived, so you should rest." With that, he led the generals outside. Mo Domlin hurriedly walked over and said in a low voice, "Sect Master Lung, I hope you won't leave. There is still a second round of talks. Please follow me to the room next door to rest." Lung Yin and Shui Yushan were baffled by the abrupt end of the discussion. The frog race couldn't just stop the discussion just because Ding Ming had taught them a lesson, right? How narrow-minded. Ding Ming didn't care. He followed Mo Domlin to a villa not far from the plaza. The metal room was well prepared. At least there were realm-devouring immortal fruits and empire pine cones. After Mo Domlin left, Ding Ming didn't hold back at all. He started to gobble up the food and chewed happily. Lung Yin obviously wasn't in such a good mood. "Commander Lei and the others can't really expect our lord to send out troops, right?" Shuiyu Mountain analyzed. "We definitely can't send out troops. At most, we can lend them 1 or 2 sacred lakes to refine some poison." Lung Yin immediately said, "The sacred lakes of the Flame Star King planet can't be touched." Shuiyu Mountain agreed. "We can let them use the small lakes at the border," the two of them analyzed. Ding Ming couldn't help but laugh. "You're both wrong." Shuiyu Mountain hurriedly said, "Ding Ming, how do you think the discussion should proceed?" Ding Ming tossed a blue fruit into his mouth. "Elder, Sect Master, you too can rest here. Commander Lei and the others won't look for you again." Lung Yin said, "What do you mean?" Ding Ming said, "I don't mean anything else. You two can leave the Frogman Kingdom now, but I want to stay. I can't leave even if I want to." Shuiyu Mountain was a bit nervous. "They won't cause you trouble, right?" Lung Yin's tone became cold. "Ding Ming, don't worry. Elder and I will stand by your side." Ding Ming smiled and said, "Thank you for your kindness, but there's really no need for that. I guarantee that someone will come looking for me later." Lung Yin said suspiciously, "Did you sense something?" Sighed. Ding Ming sighed. He really didn't know how to explain. Earlier, when Zhongyu greeted him, Ding Ming suddenly felt a chill. His hair immediately stood on end. It wasn't that he hadn't experienced this feeling before. He had experienced it when he was on Azure Tree Planet. It felt like there was a pair of invisible eyes spying on him in the wind. However, when he turned around, there was nothing behind him. At that moment, he determined that there must be a very strong person among the frogmen, but this person wasn't present. The following meeting wouldn't lead to anything because the core person of the meeting wasn't present. Therefore, all he had to do was wait patiently. Night slowly fell in Sacred Star City. At 7 o'clock at night, the sky turned completely dark. Mo Domlin came back with a happy look on his face. "Mr. Ding Ming, the commander wants to see you." Lung Yin and Shuiyu Mountain looked at each other and hurriedly asked, "General Mo, do you need us to go?" Mo Domlin showed an apologetic expression. "I'm sorry. The commander only asked me to inform Mr. Ding Ming to go." Ding Ming nodded. "Please lead the way." At this moment, there were no more frogmen guarding the square. Only Raiden stood in the center alone without a single follower. When he saw Ding Ming arrive, Raiden just gestured to the palace behind him. "Let's go." Ding Ming didn't say much and just followed behind him. Surprisingly, Mo Domlin didn't follow either. This palace was similar to the temple of the Azure Tree Tribe. They both had 3 floors. The hall on the first floor was obviously the Battle Command Center. There were all kinds of control panels and facilities, but now it was empty. The control panel of the Frogmen was a biomechanical simulation. It was completely different from the control panel of the Federation. At first glance, the control panel looked like a black machine, but when Raiden's claw pressed on a groove in the corner, Many black iron fragments were produced inside the machine. This wasn't real steel, but a fusion of special metals and biological fibers. It could be changed and combined into any model you wanted. Its function was the same as a hologram. Although this thing was big and black, it was good in its image, visual and realistic. Raiden was controlling the control panel. Ding Meng could see that he was activating the control panel. Not long after, a floor in the center of the palace cracked open, and a mechanical shuttle ladder rose. Raiden reached out his hand and said, "Please." The two entered the shuttle ladder, and the floor closed again. Ding Meng didn't expect the command center to have such a thing. It seemed that only high-level frogmen could enter. The shuttle ladder descended slowly. Through the thick, crystallized glass, they could see the operation of each floor. Countless frogmen were at their posts. Some were training on the simulator, some were recovering in petri dishes, some were doing experiments on the workbench, and some were making weapons on the production line. In short, everyone was doing their job in an orderly manner. Ding Meng sighed. "You frogmen really are a disciplined race." Raiden seemed to be sighing as well. "Our frogman nation doesn't have the advanced technology of the Federal Empire. We can only make up for the lack of technology with the advantage of manpower. Otherwise, we would have been defeated in the fertile chalk system many years ago." Ding Meng couldn't help but admire them. Unity was strength. This phrase was vividly reflected in the frogmen. As the shuttle ladder continued to descend, Ding Meng finally arrived at the bottom of the giant pyramid that was Sacred Star City. The scene in front of him was shocking. This was a completely dark and chaotic world. It could also be said that it was a giant latrine. However, in this latrine, there were black buildings that looked like electric towers. There were hundreds of such buildings, and one couldn't see the end of them. Raiden explained, "These are screening machines." "Screening machines?" Ding Meng was curious. Raiden said, "You'll understand if you take a closer look." Ding Meng expanded his telekinetic vision and found that the bottom floor was completely submerged by a very thick black water. All the screening machines were standing in the black water. When he expanded his vision into the microscopic world, Ding Meng was shocked to find that the water was filled with tiny insect eggs. The number was indescribable. It was infinite. Raiden sighed. "From your human evolutionary point of view, these are frog eggs. After they're screened by the screening machines, only 1 in 10,000 of them will be transported to the top. Then, they will begin to absorb nutrients and become large eggs, tadpoles, frogs, and finally, members of the frogmen. This is the origin of the frogman's kingdom." Ding Meng said calmly, "Does the commander trust me that much? I can even see the secrets of the frogmen?" Raiden laughed. "Mr. Ting, you're wrong. We don't trust you as a person, but your strength. As long as you have strength, you will be respected anywhere in the frogman's kingdom." Ding Meng nodded. Raiden's performance was completely within his expectations. However, the shuttle ladder was still descending. Ding Meng was finally curious. This was already the bottom floor of the frogman's kingdom. Was there another world below? As expected, the shuttle ladder moved for another 3 minutes before stopping. This was a metal palace that was exactly the same as the headquarters, but there was one more thing. There was a giant frog statue embedded in the northern steel wall. This was the most realistic statue Ding Meng had ever seen. A green frog stood. Its whole body was obviously made of metal, but its eyes were bright. It was no different from a living frog. Lei Dun finally showed a solemn expression. "The king wants to see you." "The king?" Ding Meng wondered if this was the legendary mother. "But I don't see anyone." "Hello, Ding Meng." A faint voice sounded in the palace. The voice was neither male nor female, low and hoarse, like a call from a distant world. Ding Meng was shocked. He realized that the voice was coming from the statue. Raiden had already knelt down in front of the statue. It was obviously the mother. Ding Meng narrowed his eyes. He had already spread out his telekinesis, but the walls had a shielding effect. The telekinesis wave was reflected back. After a careful scan, he determined that the statue was some kind of telepathic device, not the mother's real body. The statue spoke again. "Rise." Raiden raised his head. "Thank you, my king." The statue said, "Commander Raiden, please leave for a moment. I have something to discuss with Ding Ming. Yes, sir. Raiden lowered his head and retreated towards the shuttle ladder. When the door of the shuttle ladder closed, the statue sighed. I've heard a lot about you, Ding Ming. Ding Ming smiled. I've heard a lot about you too, Mother. Unfortunately, you don't even dare to show yourself. The statue said, I'm right in front of you. Can't you see such a big target? Ding Ming smiled. You're good at scaring your people, but it doesn't work on me. You have a favor to ask of me, but you don't dare to show yourself. I'll say it again. You're not sincere enough. I believe you heard it during the day. The statue was silent for a long time before sighing. It seems that the Dark Knight Enchantress has a reason for letting you come here. Ding Ming was slightly stunned. Very few people knew that the immortal Elemental King had merged with the Dark Knight Enchantress, but the mother knew. The mother was not easy to deal with. At that moment, the air in the center of the palace suddenly surged, and circles of light rippled. A moment later, a face in the shape of light appeared in the air. It was a frog face, but it was not as scary as the other frogs. Instead, it was a little cute like a cartoon head. It was very similar to Little Rascal's round face when it was in the form of an AI program. Although the face looked cute, the energy fluctuations were extremely shocking. This was not the true body of the main body, but a unique phantom created by using energy aura and a race's cultivation technique. Ding Ming had seen such a situation before. The Black Butterfly Demon Empress on the Extreme Flame Planet. What really surprised Ding Ming was the aura of the frog face. It was a new aura that was a combination of frogs, demons, and demons. Chapter 992. Ding Ming stared at the cartoon face, and his expression became serious. This was not the true body of the mother. From the perspective of an origin ability user, this was at most half a clone. However, its aura was already that of a galactic warrior. The true body of the mother was probably very powerful. He did not expect the leader of the Black Frogs to be so much more powerful than the leaders of the various countries. Ding Ming said in a low voice, "This is not your true face either, right?" The frog face blinked. "But I have already expressed enough sincerity and sent out a friendly signal. That is enough." Ding Ming said, "What do you want from me?" The frog face said, "It's not that I want to find you. You came to St. Dragon Star City of your own accord. I did not expect such a big shot like you to come to the Frogman Kingdom. You are here for the fertile chalk star system, right?" Ding Ming did not intend to deny it in front of such a powerful expert. Logically speaking, you should be more interested in the core of the great stellar vortex than I am. I don't understand why you want to retreat. The frog face floated in the air, seemingly deep in thought. After a long time, it sighed. "I won't hide it from you. I am of the devil race." Ding Ming was a little surprised. "But you have the aura of the frogs and demons." The frog face said, "The frogs are a branch of the devil race, and the aura of the demons is just energy that I have absorbed." Ding Ming said, "The fertile chalk star system contains the energy of the demons?" The frog face did not directly answer his question. "You should know that the black frogs came to the pan-god system many centuries ago." Ding Ming nodded. The frog face said, "But you might not know this, but we are similar to the steel main race. We are a nomadic race in the universe, relying on metals, energy, and biotechnology to survive. When we first came to the Holy Brilliant system, we discovered many rare resources in the fertile chalk star system, including metals, crystals, divine light, mana, psionic, and many other resources. We were the first to discover them." Ding Ming said, "I think Head of State Wen Yang will definitely refute your statement." The frog-faced man said, "When it comes to war, every side has its own reasons and excuses. The war between us and the Empire has been going on for hundreds of years. There's no real meaning in debating who's right and who's wrong." Ding Ming nodded. "In the end, territory is the most important thing." The frog-faced man also nodded. Both sides want to enter the core of the great stellar vortex, and they've spent so many years trying to do so. In fact, I'm not afraid to tell you that the energy contained in the core is even greater than the divine light energy you found in the rainforest 6 years ago. "Oh," Ding Ming was surprised. "How did you know?" The Dark Knight Demoness has her own plans, and I have my own difficulties. Ding Ming said, I understand. The frog-faced man sighed again. Your analysis during the day was not wrong. The small troops that the frog-faced nation has gathered over the past 3 years have been unable to infiltrate the combined fleet's blockade. They should be pretty much dead, and we don't have any cards that we can use. However, since you've come to St. Dragonstar City as a guest, this is an opportunity. Ding Ming finally understood. You want me to replace the frog-faced people and enter the core of the giant vortex to search for the demon's energy source? The frog-faced man said, I have no reason to miss out on this opportunity. Ding Ming couldn't help but laugh. Aren't you thinking too highly of me? The frog-faced man also laughed. If someone as strong as you, Ding Ming, can't do it, then I can only accept my fate. Ding Ming said, the question is, what benefits will I get? The frog-faced man stopped smiling and looked to the side. He saw another crack in the air, and a realistic scene appeared in front of Ding Ming's eyes. This seemed to be the wilderness of a rainforest planet. The ground was covered in gravel and sand, but there were corpses everywhere. The blood had dried, and it was obvious that a battle had broken out. The corpses of Imperial soldiers and mercenaries were everywhere. The camera shifted to a huge rock. There were no corpses on the rock, only 2 heads. The heads were slightly rotten, and it was obvious that they had been dead for some time. Ding Ming's eyes narrowed, and he clenched his fists. He recognized the faces of these 2 heads. They belonged to Little Arrow and Little Leopard. The frog-faced man explained, this is Planet 32 of the Rainforest Planet. We're close to the core. Ding Ming suppressed his anger. Who did this? The frog-faced man said, there were many people who went up. I couldn't see clearly in the chaotic battle. The camera was still moving. Looking up from the surface of Planet 32, one would see many dark black holes in the gray sky. It was as if the sky had been torn apart. The frog-faced man explained, this is a forbidden zone of the demons. It's very difficult for outsiders to enter. The camera shifted again, and the image showed an exquisitely designed spaceship quietly docked next to the mountain wall. The spaceship was invisible, but the frog-faced man could see it clearly. It was the Trident God Arrow spaceship. The spaceship had obviously been damaged. There were spiderweb-like cracks all over the hull. It was hard to imagine what kind of power had caused this. The cracks disappeared at this time, and the air returned to normal. The frog-faced man sighed. I know the spaceship is related to your Bingy group, but this is all I can see with my power. Sorry. This explained why even Xinjie couldn't contact Little Rascal and the others. Something had happened in the fertile chalk system. Ding Ming took a deep breath. I owe you a big favor. The frog-faced man said, I'm not trying to take advantage of you. If you can find the demonic sky race's energy source, I won't ask for much. You can share some with me, and it's up to you. I only have one condition, and that is that the energy source must not fall into the hands of Wenyang and the others no matter what. Once the Empire obtains it, our race will be doomed. Ding Ming said, I don't want it to fall into his hands, either. The frog-faced man said, I know you have old grudges with Wenyang, but now that his faction has taken shape, it can't be underestimated. Also, I'm taking a gamble by cooperating with you. I could directly teleport you to Planet 32. Ding Ming said in shock, I only know that the Starbow groups, Chu Jing, can directly teleport into the depths of the fertile chalk system. How are you going to do it? The frog-faced man said, what you might not know is that I can directly open a wormhole to achieve an unobstructed long-distance transmission, but this is only limited to individuals. Every time I open it, I'll be weakened for a long time. Now you should understand why I can't personally go, right? Ding Ming let out a long sigh. I finally understand the commander's words. You don't trust me as a person, but my strength. The frog-faced man nodded. I can't think of anyone more suitable than you. Ding Ming said, what about that Zhongyu? The frog-faced man said, he's a representative sent by the Gauss group. You should have heard of this group. Ding Ming said, I've heard of them, but they seem to keep a very low profile. The frog-faced man said, actually, they're the largest pirate group in the fertile chalk system. Before Chuangyu's Guan Xinxing cleared his name, he relied on the Gauss group. Ding Meng said, "In that case, the Gauss group is under the control of Chuangyu?" The frog-faced man said, "It used to be, but not anymore. Chuangyu has always wanted to control it, but there are many experts within the Gauss group. Not only does Wen Yang not want to provoke this group, even I don't want to fall out with them. After all, they're the ones who truly understand the fertile chalk system." Ding Meng said, "Understood." The frog-faced man said, "Then it's time for you to make the decision." Ding Meng said, "Sure, I'll accept your conditions." The frog-faced man said, "Then when do you want to leave?" Ding Meng said, "We can leave now." "Very well, as you wish." The frog-faced man disappeared after answering. At the same time, a green dot appeared in the center of the palace. The green dot slowly expanded, gradually turning into a vortex. It was a miniature version of the space-time tunnel, but the aura emanating from it was the chaotic energy of the cosmic storm. Ding Meng did not think too much and walked straight in. The vortex closed and disappeared, and the palace immediately became empty again. Chapter 993. This was a very strange space-time tunnel. It was different from any other form of teleportation. The space storms here caused very little pressure, and at first, Ding Meng could still see himself flying out of planet Heavenly Silkworm. However, the scenery gradually turned into lines of light, twisting and surging like the waves of the sea. This was undoubtedly a very safe teleportation. It was probably caused by the power of the mother body. The leader of the Black Frogs was truly quite capable. In Ding Meng's consciousness, he arrived at Planet 32 of the Rainforest System in less than 15 minutes. What appeared before him was the rocky ravine he had seen on the reconnaissance screen. Ding Meng decisively circulated his origin energy, emitting a unique aura of divine light. The divine Arrow spaceship immediately sensed it and quickly revealed itself. Ding Meng quickly walked in when he saw the side door of the spaceship open. Little Rascal and Little AI were indeed busy at the main control console. Many screens of light were refreshed. It seemed that they were in a tense state of repair. Little Rascal came up to greet him. "Ding Meng, you're finally back." Ding Meng said, "How did the spaceship end up like this?" Little Rascal brought up a screen. "Do you see the black hole in the sky?" Ding Meng nodded. "Forbidden by the demons?" Little Rascal enlarged the image, revealing the black hole's true form. It really was like a bottomless pit. The walls of the pit were made up of countless roiling black clouds. When the Trident spaceship flew in, it seemed to activate some kind of force field. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, forming a powerful electric force field that prevented the spaceship from moving forward. The divine Arrow spaceship was indeed trying to force its way through the electric current, but deep within the core, there were ripples that spread outwards. These ripples directly broke through the spaceship's shield system, causing the ship's hull to crack. Helpless, the divine Arrow spaceship could only retreat. Ding Meng frowned. "What's going on?" Little Rascal sighed. "This is the demonic wind formation, an advanced sealing system of the demonic sky race. It's specifically designed to suppress divine light technology. Even though we receive the energy transmitted to us by that senior, the spaceship still can't fly in. At least, our divine Arrow spaceship can't enter." That senior was naturally referring to Sokka's. Ding Meng knew that Little Rascal must be aware of the existence of solitary entropy by now. "Is there no way to get in?" Ding Meng asked again. Little Rascal said, "You can enter without disturbing the formation. There is only one condition, and that is, unless the formation allows a ship to enter. Many of the Federal Empire's starships can enter." Ding Meng was curious. "What's the reason?" Little Rascal said dejectedly. "That's how Little Arrow and Little Leopard were killed." Not far from here was a base of the combined fleet. Little Arrow and Little Leopard tried to disguise themselves as Imperial soldiers and sneak in. In the end, they encountered Blue Lotus mercenaries. Both sides were discovered by the people of the combined fleet. By the time we rushed over, they had already been killed. Ding Ming said, "The brothers Little Arrow and Little Leopard are not weak, and they have a lot of combat experience as well. Logically speaking, there are very few people who can cut off their heads." Little Rascal said, "It can be seen that the combined fleet has a lot of experts." The two brothers were worried that little AI and I would take the risk, so they went in our place. I didn't expect this to be the result. Ding Ming gritted his teeth and said, "It's fine. Even if the murderer is at the ends of the earth, I will find him or her." Little Rascal sighed. "The spaceship can't move for the time being. We need time to repair it. You should go check on the elephant. He hasn't eaten or drunk for many days now. We can't persuade him." Ding Ming said, "Where is he?" Little Rascal said, "In the room inside." The cabin in the resting area was also in the form of a stream of light. It was like a bright room at the bottom of the ocean. It was extremely boring for people to stay in this kind of room, but the elephant just sat on the floor and stared blankly at the light screen. When Ding Ming came in, the elephant didn't even turn his head. He still maintained this posture. Ding Ming sighed helplessly. He could understand the elephant's feelings the most at this moment. Elephant and Little Arrow had grown up with the elephant and Junling. The relationship between the brothers and sisters could no longer be described as deep. It was a family that was thicker than water. They fought in the monster horde, covered for each other, looked after each other in daily life, hugged each other for warmth in the cold. They were not family, but they were far more than family. The sincerity and depth of this kind of relationship was hard to describe with words. But now the two brothers had been beheaded. This was a kind of anger that soared to the sky, but also a kind of deep helplessness and sadness. Perhaps the only thing the burly elephant could do was stay here and suffer alone. Ding Ming didn't waste time talking nonsense. He went up and patted the elephant's back. "Let's go and avenge them." This was more effective than any words. The elephant seemed to wake up from a dream. He was pleasantly surprised. "Brother Ding, you're back. Where's Sister June?" Ding Ming said, "She can't come back for the time being. If there's anything, I'll help you settle it." The elephant suddenly stood up, like a sleeping beast that had suddenly regained its vitality. "Brother Ding, with you here, we're not afraid of those beasts." Ding Ming pressed him down. "Tell me, what exactly happened at that time?" The elephant said, "Brother Ding, come with me." On the other side of the ravine, the elephant stopped in front of a stone forest. When we reached here, the people from the combined fleet suddenly appeared. There were also a small team. They were well equipped and opened fire as soon as they saw us. Little Leopard and Little Arrow were fine, but the people from the Blue Lotus mercenaries were unlucky. Ding Ming frowned. "We still can't beat them, even with the armor." The elephant said, "No. Some of them said that it was obviously a secret operation, but the combined fleet seemed to have discovered our whereabouts long ago. They had been lying in ambush here for a long time. They suspected that we were spies, and so the three sides started fighting." Ding Ming could already imagine that the fierce battle here was very chaotic. The elephant and the other two were attacked from the front and back. This was different from the monster battles on Madison. Everyone was armed with technological weapons. No matter how hard their bodies were, there would always be a limit. After a long time, they would definitely not be able to hold on. But with the skills of the elephant and the other two, it shouldn't be a problem for them to retreat safely. The elephant's expression became sorrowful and angry. When we retreated, we encountered another group of troops at the entrance. The leader of this group was an officer. We don't know his name. We only know that the soldiers called him General of the North. Ding Ming pondered. There were at least dozens of generals in the Federal Empire. Was there a general with the surname Bay? The elephant's eyes were slightly red. We were no match for this General of the North. In order to cover my escape, Junior Leopard and Little Arrow, he could not continue. The Divine Arrow spaceship must have detected the aftermath. The two brothers were beheaded. Ding Ming gritted his teeth and said, "Don't worry. I will remove the bones of that Bay guy and bring them back to you." The elephant nodded sadly. "Brother Ding, let's go up." After crossing the ravine terrain, there was a very high rocky slope in front of them. Climbing among the rocks, they could see the base of the combined fleet in the distance. It was not a small spaceport. It was similar to the normal spaceports of the Federal Empire. The construction was relatively simple, but there was a plaza, a runway, a terminal, and a supply warehouse. There were 7 or 8 spaceships of various types parked in the plaza. Most of them were transport ships. The logos on the ships were indeed from the Federal Empire. However, the soldiers stationed there were all wearing high-grade armor and carrying various weapons. The security level of this place was very high. The elephant was already explaining. Our spaceships have detected that there are more than 100 bases like this all over Planet 32. Ding Meng asked, "Why are there so many spaceports?" The elephant pointed at the sky above. Moni and the adjutant were conversing in a low voice. Other people couldn't hear, but in front of Ding Meng, there was no secret. The content of their conversation was exactly what Ding Meng wanted to know. The general idea was that the combined fleet had sealed off the perimeter, but there were other non-military forces near the spaceport. The general of the North had intercepted 2 groups of people who were trying to sneak into the base and killed them halfway. After the investigation, it was discovered that the 2 groups of people were Blue Lotus mercenaries and galactic traders from outer space. Now, Moni and her people were sent back to confirm. The adjutant was puzzled. "Isn't the general overthinking it? Do you need to confirm it again?" Moni's expression was very ugly. "There's news that the 2 galactic traders were from the Bingi Corporation." The adjutant was shocked. The Bingi Corporation is one of the top corporations. I heard that there are many experts there. If we really killed their people by mistake, it would be too troublesome. Moni said, "The general asked us to find the bodies. You know, I'll leave this matter to you." As she spoke, she secretly made a cut gesture. It was obvious that she wanted to destroy the bodies. The adjutant had a difficult expression. "Sir, the Bingi Corporation and the Starbao Corporation are very supportive of the combined fleet. What we are doing isn't very appropriate." Moni glared at him. "What? Does the general need you to teach him how to do things? Hurry up and go. Go now." The adjutant could only lower his head sadly. "Roger." Ding Meng was overjoyed. He was worried that he wouldn't have a chance to sneak in. Now that he was about to doze off, someone handed him a pillow. The adjutant left the terminal building alone and entered the gully area with a map on his wrist device. Of course, at this time, the person waiting for him in the gully was the elephant. Ding Meng didn't need to do anything to deal with this kind of general. The elephant hiding in the corpse jumped up and punched the adjutant 720 degrees. Before the adjutant could react, the elephant knocked him out with a few punches. Just as he was about to finish off this person, Ding Meng suddenly stopped him. "Don't kill him. Find a place to hide him. Don't let him run around." Ding Meng also remembered that the adjutant still had a trace of kindness left, so he didn't want to kill him. Then, Ding Meng took off the adjutant's wrist device and transformed into an identical adjutant. After turning on the wrist device, Ding Meng completely grasped the relevant information. This adjutant was called Lian Ka. He was from the Norse Empire's Star Warrior University. His talent was above average. After graduation, he entered the frontline war zone in the Fertile Chalk system and was later promoted to be Moni's adjutant. Lian Ka's information was simple, but in Lian Ka's personal diary, there was a lot of information about Moni. Chapter 995. At the northernmost point of Planet 32, a huge spaceport stood in the snow. This base was much larger than the previous base. To put it bluntly, this base was comparable to the Bingi Corporation's headquarters. Other than the spaceport and other basic buildings, there were also hotels and apartments. The entire place was brightly lit, and all kinds of spaceships took off and landed. It was like a city that never slept. This was definitely the main station. After Moni's transport ship landed, the group did not rush to the central terminal building. Instead, they walked toward the 5-star hotel in the south. Of course, at this time, the other attendants were all called to the fleet or the barracks. Only Moni and Ding Ming came to the 7th floor of the hotel. There were 2 suites here, one for each of them. Before entering the room, Moni said, "Xiao Yin, you did well today. The general will remember this. Rest well tonight. The general will definitely bring us to a confidential meeting tomorrow morning." Ding Ming immediately bowed his head respectfully. "Thank you, sir." After entering the suite, Ding Ming realized that the room was decorated very luxuriously. The standard was similar to the hotels in the Federal Empire. To be able to build such a good hotel on Planet 32, it seemed like the combined fleet had plans to stay here for a long time. Of course, Ding Ming would not waste his precious time on leisure. He sat cross-legged on the sofa and began to activate the telekinesis in his mind. Pairs of star-charged particles were activated. Although his current telekinesis was mainly focused on electromagnetism, he had some knowledge of the 16 main types of telekinesis provided by the Galaxy Codex. At the very least, he had learned some of the easier ones. A classic example was the divine sense. This was a biochemical branch of source energy. It was a high-level detection telekinesis. It only required Ding Ming to release a few pairs of star-charged particles on Moni. As long as it was within a controllable range, no matter where Moni went, it would be able to completely ignore all obstacles and monitor her. This divine sense elementary telekinesis was called Star Eye. It meant that it was an eye under the starry sky. It could scan the entire space. The celestial eye was much safer than the peeping technique. It was also much better than the telekinesis microdetection technique because it was almost impossible to be detected by the other party. As the old saying goes, unless the other party was much stronger than you. After Mo and I returned to her room, she took off her heavy military uniform and went into the bathroom to take a hot shower. Finally, she came out in a white bathrobe. Just when Ding Ming thought she was going to rest and go to bed, she started to dress up in front of the mirror. In less than 10 minutes, she had turned into a sexy woman with heavy makeup. The combined fleet's commander-in-chief has not issued an official notice. If they ask, I hope you can take responsibility. After all, this is a private operation. Bai Ming nodded with a serious expression. Understood. Rest assured, General Yuan. I am willing to take responsibility for this. Yuan Liang said, don't worry. If there's anything to be gained from this trip, you will definitely be rewarded. Ding Ming was even more puzzled. These people were clearly not authorized by the military to act on their own. Judging from Yuan Liang's tone, it seemed like he was going to push the blame to Bai Ming after this. Bai Ming did not seem to have any objections. What was so good about this wormhole that everyone was willing to take such a risk for? The spaceship was still flying steadily through the tunnel. It looked like the demonic light array would not be activated. Moreover, Zhang Tianyang was still communicating with someone on the main control panel. Ding Ming was even more puzzled. How could you maintain communication in a wormhole? This is a space-time tunnel, right? A reconnaissance spaceship can communicate with the outside world. Ding Ming finally spoke up. The other 4 people were somewhat surprised. It was already very difficult for you to get on this ship, and you still have the guts to question us? Moni immediately reprimanded. Little Lien, pay attention to your status. Ding Ming could not be bothered with her. He continued. The only explanation is some other advanced technology. If I'm not wrong, it should be communication with the demons, right? You guys are actually contacting the demons. When these words were said, Yuan Liang and Zhang Tianyang's expressions changed at the same time. The 2 of them immediately turned their heads to look at Bai Ming. Their gazes were as sharp as blades. It was obvious that these words were not something an adjutant should be able to say. Bai Ming immediately glared at Ding Ming. What's wrong with you? Are you crazy? Ding Ming sneered. You're the crazy one. You actually had the guts to kill someone from the Bingy group. Who ordered you to do this? Was it these 2 generals? Bai Ming and the other 3 immediately sensed danger. They all turned around and surrounded Ding Ming. Ding Ming looked at Zhang Tianyang. Are you actively contacting the demons? Tell us the truth. Zhang Tianyang's face was dark, and he did not answer. Bai Ming suddenly slapped Ding Ming across the face. A visible cinnabar-colored wind immediately wrapped around him. If it were anyone else, the astral winds would have instantly incinerated them into ashes. However, Ding Ming did not move at all, allowing the energy to enter his body. To be honest, this level of attack was not even considered drizzle. When they saw that Ding Ming was unharmed, and that even his uniform was untouched, Bai Ming and Moni took 2 steps back in shock. Moni cried out, "Who are you? You're definitely not Little Yen."